Don't be afraid to form a line. Hi, everybody. I'm Brian. I do a radio show out of Las Vegas. I am very honored to be a part of the America Tour. People ask me all the time, what does that mean? Well, I'll be honest with you. I think so long as Donald Trump is the president of the United States, this country is How do we America? Well, first of all, the No Kings protests are a really good start. The midterms are right around the corner, and we got to make sure MAGA do not continue to run this country, and we got to form alliances and peaceful protests. So I've been told anybody that wants to get up in line here for a debate, for a question, for a conversation, you get a free hat. That's what I've been told. So the line is right here. Don't be afraid. Anybody can come right on up and have a conversation. I promise you I won't bite. Do we have any MAGA supporters here? Do we have any Trump supporters here that are in the crowd? Yes? No? I'll take that as a no. You don't have to be a Trump supporter. You don't have to be a conservative to be up here and have a debate, have a conversation. Anybody's welcome to. How many people here are registered Democrats? Any Republicans here? Raise your hand. We don't have one Republican here? Oh, okay. That's interesting. Very, very interesting. How many people here attend UNLV? Okay, a lot of students. Cool. I like that. I like that. How many people here were at the No Kings protests? Nice. I went to a few of them here in town myself. So a lot of people ask me every day, why are you anti-Donald Trump? And I really don't know where to begin. I have two different aspects of it. There's the policy aspect of it, and then there's the personal aspect of it. Personally, Donald Trump is a 34-count felon. He's an adjudicated sexual abuser. He's the only president in American history that has never conceded an election. If Donald Trump was never president, January 6th never happens. I could go on and on with the things he says, the things he does, the AI video that he put out the other day, which I thought was utterly despicable and disgusting. Come on up. Okay, well, come up to the mic so people can hear you, sir. And anybody else has... It's always tough to be the first person to come up. Yeah, give this guy a round of applause. Always difficult. What's your name, sir?
I'm Sean.
Sean?
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm a little nervous.
Don't be afraid. Don't be nervous. Yeah. Don't be afraid to speak in the microphone. It's kind of low if anybody can do something with that. Thank you.
Is this like going on like social media or anything?
Don't worry about that. You're just talking to me.
Yeah. Yeah, because I have some relatives who are Trump supporters, and I just want to know, like, why do you think people still support Donald Trump at this day and age?
And I'm sorry, what was your name again?
I'm Sean.
Sean says, the mic's a little low. Sean says he has members of his family that are Trump supporters, and he's asking me why people still support Donald Trump. It's a loaded question, but it's a good question. I think there are different categories of why people support Donald Trump. I think one category, and I'm just going to be completely honest, is ill-informed. I think there's people that watch Newsmax, they watch OAN, they watch Fox News, and I think they're consumed with right-wing propaganda, and I think that's a huge problem. I think there's another group of people, sadly, that are bigoted in nature, and I think it's not that I'm saying every single person that voted for Donald Trump is racist, but I do believe every racist has voted for Donald Trump. There's a difference. I have friends that voted for Donald Trump. They're not racist, but they could at least admit the person he is. I disagree with them on policy. And then thirdly, I think there's members of society that are extremely wealthy that have a lot of money, and they understand that they're going to save money on their taxes because Donald Trump gave the biggest tax breaks to the top 1% in the history of this country in the big and beautiful bill. There's a group of people that think brown people are a threat to this country. They don't want migrants coming into this country. They claim we just want them to come into the country legally. But that's not true. And when you look at what's going on in this country right now, it's not true. So I think there are multiple different reasons to answer your question.
Yeah, because I have a family member. It's like I'm from we're from the Philippines, and like one member of my family said that it's like we waited 30 years. Grandpa waited 30 years to immigrate to the U.S. So it's like why can everyone else cut the line? It's like they can't take shortcuts. So that's some of my family members' perspective.
So your family members that support Trump, when you ask them, what's the first reason they give why they support Donald Trump?
I think the illegal immigration issue. Yeah. Yeah, since our family, we immigrated from the Philippines in the 80s, and like he always says, Grandpa waited 30 years to move our family to the U.S. So like doesn't give anyone else the right to like come here illegally and skip out on all the paperwork.
Here's what I would say to your family members. Are you, if I was talking to one of your family members, I would say, are you okay with ICE agents around the country not identifying themselves, tackling good people, people that are being deported, people that are being arrested that are U.S. citizens? Are you okay with people not getting the right to due process? In our Constitution, it doesn't say any citizen. It says any person has the right to due process. So I would ask them those questions, and I would say, are you comfortable with people that have lived in this country for decades that might not have the right paperwork, but are you comfortable with deporting those people, some to El Salvador prisons that have never committed a violent crime in their life? And I would see what they say to that. And if they say, no, I'm not okay with that, then I would say, okay, so you're not in support of what Donald Trump is doing. That's the way I would respond to them. Yeah.
Because I tell my family members, it's like these illegal immigrants. It's like they may be undocumented, but they still pay their taxes. They still take. I mean, well, they're still doing like the jobs that no one else would want to do. So
yeah, and the Trump administration's lying when Tom Homan and Trump and everyone in his administration says we're going to focus on the violent criminals. That's not true. Over 60% of the people that are being deported right now are people that have never committed a violent crime in their life. So the administration is lying. And I don't recognize this country anymore. People that are seeking asylum outside of courtrooms, that are being tackled by ICE agents, in some cases not even identifying themselves. It's not the country that I want to live in, and I'm sure it's not the country that a lot of people here want to live in either.
Yeah, okay, one more thing. So, like, I have a few other family members who, they consider themselves centrist. They consider themselves moderate. And, like, one family member of mine, they put neither Kamala Harris nor Donald Trump in their ballot when they voted back in November. And, like, they still say at the end of the day, well, I still voted in the election, so don't say I didn't vote. But in my opinion, they threw away their vote by not voting for either candidate. And, like, they're saying, oh, no, I'm still justified in not voting for Kamala Harris because, and like, I'm trying to tell them, like, with seeing everything that's happening on the news, like, would this really be happening right now if Kamala Harris were president? And they refuse to answer, I think.
Well, they refuse to answer it because it's cowardly. If Kamala Harris was president of the United States, we wouldn't have ICE agents all over the country doing what they're doing. If Kamala Harris was president of the United States, I don't believe she would have called Vladimir Zelensky a dictator who started the war. She wouldn't have rolled out the red carpet for Vladimir Putin. She wouldn't have given the biggest tax breaks for the top 1% in this country. And I'm not saying Kamala Harris was perfect.
Yeah, no.
Obviously, I voted for her. I made a very big mistake in 2016, and I own that. I didn't vote for Hillary or Donald Trump. I didn't really like either of them. And I admit that I made a very big mistake. Obviously, I voted for Joe Biden in 2020. I don't understand how people in this political climate couldn't vote in 2024. That part I don't understand. Or vote for Harris or like I don't understand that at all.
It's like I heard like my main argument is that Kamala Harris didn't have an agenda. She didn't have a policy like the Democrats.
That's a lie. Yeah, I mean, all you have to do is listen to what she was trying to do, what she wanted to do, what she wanted to do with the taxes, what she wanted to do with the criminal reform, there's so many different things that she said on her campaign tour and things that she wanted to accomplish. So anybody that says, well, she didn't have any policies is a lie. And by the way, those are the same people that probably voted for Donald Trump that couldn't name the 3 branches of government and probably couldn't name one policy that they like under Donald Trump. So,
okay, thank you.
Well, thank you, sir. Here, grab a hat. Thank you very much. All right, who's next? Don't be afraid. Come on up here. I'll lure you with a free hat. Come on up, sir. I know it's not easy to come up here, but I appreciate it. By the way, Destiny's going to be coming up here in about 20 minutes or so you're certainly not going to want to miss that. What's your name, sir? Roman, come on up here. Thanks for coming up, Roman. What's on your mind?
About, like, the vegan movement. What's your guys' stance on that?
The vegan movement?
Yeah.
I don't know anything about that. No. Don't know anything about the vegan movement.
So...
I know a lot about our movement.
Yeah. First of all, what do you guys do?
It's the opposite, basically, of Turning Point USA in the extent that we want good political discourse and conversation. And I think a lot of people on college universities were, quite frankly, brainwashed by members of Turning Point. So what we're doing here is we're speaking our minds, speaking our opinions, and trying to inform people to not vote against their own self-interest. And I know this isn't about hate. We're not attacking transgenders. We're not attacking minorities. We're not blaming brown people for all the problems in this country. We're not blaming the radical left for all the problems in this country. We're not spreading hate and bigotry. And I think that's what this is all about. And I think there are other organizations that do that. They spew hate and bigotry. And if you're not like us, if you're not a white Christian, then you're bad for the country. And I completely disagree with that. I don't care what the color of your skin is. I don't care what your religion is.
What your ability
I don't care about
is,
any of that.
What your ability is, because obviously because of the government shutdown, people with disabilities, including me, I have an intellectual disability. So
well, yeah, and I appreciate that. And I remember, and I'm sure all of you remember, when Donald Trump first go-around was running for president, he mocked a handicapped journalist.
Wait?
Yes, he mocked a handicapped journalist. And I thought, if there's anything that should make you unqualified to be president, it's that, because when you're president of the United States, you're supposed to represent everybody. I mean, that's just one of many despicable things that he did.
My question was more about the Medicare, Medicaid.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, the big and beautiful bill, that's why we're in a government shutdown right now. So when Republicans tell you that this is a Democrat Chuck Schumer shutdown, that is, again, a complete, utter lie. The reason why we're in a shutdown right now is because in this big and beautiful bill, 20 million Americans are going to be losing their health care coverage. 20 million. And the Democrats are showing a backbone and saying, no, we want it back to where it was before this big and beautiful bill was put in place. And this is not a Schumer shutdown. It's not a Democrat shutdown. Right now, Democrats are fighting for everybody, Republicans and Democrats. I don't want to see 20 million people lose their health care coverage. I don't want to see somebody like you lose your health care coverage. That's why we're in a government shutdown right now. It is because of the big and beautiful bill and Republicans that want to take health care away from 20 million Americans, meanwhile giving the biggest tax breaks to the top 1%.
I'm lucky that I'm not in the position that I need that, but obviously other people in the similar position, does it need... I thought they need 60 votes to pass.
Yeah, I think they need votes from somewhere like 7 or 8 Democrats, I think.
And the Republicans are
right.
blaming the Democrats and the...
Well, that's what they always do. Republicans never take responsibility in Washington, D.C. for anything. They never do. If anything goes wrong, if there's a plane crash, they blame it on DEI hires. If it's the economy, they blame it on Joe Biden. If a bridge collapses, they'll blame it on Pete Buttigieg. I mean, this is Republicans, at least today, in my opinion, never take responsibility for anything. It's always Joe Biden's fault. It's Barack Obama's fault. It's George Soros's fault. I mean, this is what the Republican Party today, this is what they do.
About the No Kings protest, do you think that's actually going to work, or do you think it's just
I think peaceful protests always work. It's our First Amendment right to do so. You saw how agitated the Republicans got first. They were going to be all a bunch of old people, J.D. Vance says, and hipsters. And then all of a sudden, we were Hamas, and we were terrorists. Remember when they said that a week before the protest? We're all violent. It's the violent left. And then when not one person was arrested, all of a sudden they went back to, we were just a bunch of old white people, which is, by the way, not true. I went to a couple of the No Kings protests here. It was a diverse group of people, all different age groups. It felt like I was at a Kamala Harris rally. It felt like America, okay? You go to a Donald Trump rally, in my personal opinion, it feels like a Klan rally, okay? It's a bunch of white people that, in my opinion, are very angry people. I've went to some of these Trump rallies here. I've seen Confederate flags. I've seen the hatred. I didn't see that at these Kings rallies, No Kings rallies. I didn't see that. I saw a lot of love. I saw a lot of support. I saw a lot of camaraderie. And quite frankly, it gave me a lot of hope for the future.
So about me, I'm no longer part of Turning Point. I only joined because of, to be honest, because the women there. Sorry. But,
Wait, hold on. I got to backtrack there. You went to Turning Point events for the women. That's interesting.
Sorry.
Okay. I appreciate your honesty. That's interesting.
But then I found about their health care, their policies on health care, and people have...
It's terrible.
Yeah.
It's terrible. And, listen, it's horrible what happened to Charlie Kirk. I think anybody that's a decent human being would agree. We can disagree with people and we can have political discourse, but political violence should never be condoned by anybody. And anybody that's celebrating a murder, I don't condone that at all. I think it's awful. But here's I said this on the Piers Morgan show a few weeks ago, and I'll say it again. There's a difference between celebrating a murder, which overwhelmingly people would not do, and I don't condone that, and not wanting to celebrate somebody's life. I can say in the same sentence, I was not a Charlie Kirk fan, but what happened to him was awful. He's still a father. He's still a husband. Those kids are going to grow up without a dad. We can never condone political violence, but it doesn't mean that I'm going to be on the radio every day and say what a great guy he was. No, I'm not going to do that. It's my right not to do that. At the same time, violence is never the answer. So I don't condone anybody that was happy or celebrated what happened to him. I think it's absolutely horrible. It's horrible for all the people that were there that had to see it. It's horrible for his friends, his family. So I think we can do both in a respectful way. We don't have to like him or like what he stood for, but we shouldn't like what happened to him.
Yeah. I know that, but back to my... How long can I debate? Is there like a set time limit? Oh, so there's no set time limit here, so...
I mean, we're not going to be here for an hour, but, you know.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, we're back.
Okay.
You want white or black?
Black.
Is there anybody else that wants to come up here? And
Okay.
all right, thank you, sir. I appreciate your time. Thank you. Good questions. He went to Turning Point rallies to pick up women. I appreciate that. It's very interesting. Switch over right now? Okay. You want me to debate one more? Or? You gotta go? Okay. You gotta move. All right. So without further ado, thank you everybody for being here, by the way. And it's an honor to have to be a part of the Unfuck America tour. There's so many wonderful people that are a part of this, and I'm so happy to be here. Now I would like to introduce to you a man who probably needs no introduction. You've seen him everywhere, all over. He's one of the top streamers on the planet, and he's done my show a few times. The very popular Destiny, everybody.
And really quickly, we are about to throw out these free hats. We are the counter to Turning Point USA. So if you want a hat for free, come over here because we don't want to throw them in the dirt. So if you want some free hats, come up here. We're going to start tossing them out to you guys. White or black? Yeah. White or black?
Black, please.
Oh, perfect. I needed that.
Black hat. Black hat.
I'm just going to, you guys trade it?
Black hat.
Black or white, your choice, everybody, your
Black
choice.
hat. Black hat.
Thank you.
Black hat.
Good.
Black hat. Black hat.
Black hat.
Let's go.
Thank you.
Black hat right here. White hat.
I got more. Don't worry, guys. I'm going to throw these out. I got black ones coming. Some more. You guys can trade. It's Halloween.
The kid in the red, right over there. Right there.
I got more now.
Woo! Okay. Hell yeah.
We got more. Black hat. Sorry.
Hey, what's up? How's everybody doing today? Okay, hold on. Excuse me. Try it again. How's everybody doing today?
I want more hats.
It's marginally better. What did that guy say? True. Yes. Ye never lose. From the audience. That is absolutely correct. How conservative is this campus? Is it like, I heard it was like 50-50. You think that's true? Yes? No? Maybe? Well, this is I don't know, if it's my second or third official Unfuck America event. Thanks for coming out and chatting. I guess if there are any conservative people in the audience that want to come up and chat, I know these tend to be kind of liberal dominated, but yeah, sir, come on up and talk. Oh, wait. Oh, that guy was just getting a free hat. Oh, unbelievable. Or wait, did you want to come up and chat? Yeah. Oh, never mind. No, he's coming. Okay, yeah. Come on. Oh, okay, yeah. All right. Oh, okay. This guy first.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, what's up? How's it going?
Hey, what's up? So, I generally consider myself like in the middle, but
Okay.
my question for you was, do you support a free Palestine?
I mean, it depends what you mean by free Palestine, I guess.
Okay, do you support the IDF being completely out of the borders of Gaza and the West Bank?
I think broadly speaking, yeah. It depends on what the new West Bank would look like, I guess, yeah. But, I mean, obviously, whatever the negotiated territory would be for a Palestinian state, ideally the IDF wouldn't be there, but, yeah.
Okay. And has Israel been committing a genocide?
I wouldn't say so, but...
No?
Not yet.
Not yet? Really?
Yep, really, yep.
How come?
I just feel like the constituent elements of a genocide aren't necessarily there yet. I don't think the goal was to eliminate a group of people. I think that they were just really aggressively pursuing other aims that probably weren't good, but I just don't know if it would cross the threshold into genocide.
What about the indiscriminate bombing of civilian camps?
I think if there was indiscriminate bombing of civilian camps, I think the death count would have been way higher.
The death count is extremely high.
Not even close to what indiscriminate bombing would look like. And I think it's like 23 miles
Okay,
by,
what about all the leveled hospitals, targeting hospitals?
Yeah, I mean, that sucks. It's bad.
Is that not genocidal behavior?
I don't think so. I think firing from hospitals is pretty bad behavior too, though, right? The issue is like Hamas conducts itself in a way to induce the maximum amount of civilian damage and casualties. So, I mean, it sucks. But
The IDF calls itself the most advanced military in the world, but they can't conduct operations where they go into buildings and kill specific targets. They have to bomb civilian hospitals where children are being treated and mothers are having their babies fertilized.
I mean, they have conducted
incubated.
special operations. They've conducted, larger bombings as well. I mean, war sucks. I don't know what you. I don't think there's ever been like a nice or a good.
It's not
war.
really a war, though. I mean, when you look at the power difference from both sides and how long this has been going on since 1948, it's not a 2-year war. This is a very long problem. And right now, it's a genocide.
Sure, I guess. What do you think the moral response would have been after October 7th?
Well, I think special operations to target leaders would have been the correct response, not bombing civilians, and even in some cases, shooting civilians, snipers targeting children and elderly women. And by the way, not just Muslims, but also targeting Christians outside of churches with sniper fire.
So what do you think?
That's not targeting Hamas leadership.
Sure, so what do you think? I mean, they did kill Hamas leadership.
I'm sure they did, but that's also not only what they did.
So you think after October 7th, you think they should have just try to kill like a few leaders and then that's it, and then wrap it up and go home, or?
I think they should have still targeted Hamas, which is not what they were doing. They clearly cut off electricity, food, water. They have a complete blockade. They block aid. They attack World Health Organization workers. They attack UN health workers. The flotilla.
Yeah, that sucked.
Yeah, like come on.
No, like the flotilla sucked. I'm sorry. The flotillas are just, I think they're props for.
Oh, come on, man.
Yeah, I mean, they are, right? They were literally throwing all the food overboard. The Mari Mullah or whatever that left in 2010 from Turkey
And
also
the
didn't have
drone
any aid
strikes
in
on
it.
the flotillas, that's not...
There were no drone strikes on the flotillas.
Seriously, there's videos.
There's a video of them shooting a flare and it falling back on themselves. There is no drone strike. You can look at the video. There's no exploded vessel. There's no massive, sinking ship. Like, it's pretty obvious what that was.
And what about the treatment of the people who they captured from the flotillas when they got to Israel?
You mean when they beat up Greta Thunberg and then she did an interview the next day and she doesn't have a single mark on her? I'm sorry, I'm not believing these people.
Well,
Like,
that wasn't even something she alleged. She wasn't talking about that. She was talking about the experience and the conditions that the other Palestinians in that prison were in, which, by the way, are horrible conditions. She wasn't even mentioning that, so it's not something that she was trying to stand on.
Sure. Why do you think Hamas wouldn't just release all the hostages after taking them initially?
Okay, because if they release all the hostages, what incentive does Israel have not to just bomb the whole place?
Well, they weren't bombing them before October 7th, at least not as much, right?
They were. They definitely
At the same
were.
level? It's been the same level, really, for
Definitely not
80
the
years?
same level. Definitely not the same level. But there was killing, and it is systematically trying to remove the people from the land. If you watch what some settlers do, and they're encouraged to do this, they go onto land, they steal houses they get armed by the Israeli military to go steal houses and beat up civilians, and it's encouraged.
So I'm not going to disagree on the settlers. I think it's a separate issue from Gaza.
So you do agree that that is a problem, though?
I think it's abhorrent. I think
The systematic colonization of the land. Do you think the land is being colonized right now?
I don't know if I would use the word colonized, but the expansion of the settlements and everything. Can somebody hit the volume on this speaker a bit? I hear the feedback. Whoever can do that over there. The expansion into the West Bank is unacceptable, and it's making it harder and harder or impossible to figure out any kind of like actual solution to the problem, for sure.
Okay, and when you say solution,
Cool, okay.
what is your idea of a solution to that problem?
The solution is hard because in the West we conceptualize one solution, and then in Israel-Palestine, I think both sides conceptualize other solutions. Personally, like me and a lot of other people in the West that talk about it are fans of like the two-state solution, but the people in Israel and Palestine and Gaza, the West Strip, like or in the West Bank, these guys don't necessarily favor a two-state solution, and it seems like there's kind of this vague idea of what a two-state solution would even look like. But I feel like the issue is neither side really feels any pressure to like move into some kind of like actual peaceful agreement. For Israel, they just get to keep, expanding into the West Bank, and they get to enjoy the status quo.
I think that's what they want, though.
Yeah, for sure. But Palestinians, and especially some of the violent leadership like Hamas, also enjoys like violence because it furthers their political ends.
Not that I'm saying I support Hamas, by the way. I just support a free and unoppressed Palestinian people.
Sure.
Can you say that you agree with that?
Yeah, of course. I think everybody should be free and unoppressed as much as possible. But the question is, like, what does that look like? What does that final arrangement look like? And I feel like there are hard questions about what East Jerusalem looks like, and especially like the refugee stuff. Like, what does that look like? It feels like these are conversations that don't get talked about a lot in the West, and then there's not even any Palestinian leadership to talk to, I think largely because Netanyahu likes it that way, in Israel, Palestine.
For sure.
Yeah. But I guess my frustration is when we talk about things like genocide or apartheid, people like to throw these loaded words at the region, Israel, Palestine.
Well, now the UN did declare it a genocide. So, the highest
UN
court
committee,
legally declared it a genocide.
The International Court of Justice is different than just like whatever UN Special Rapporteur Committee. I don't know the UN says a lot of stuff. But the ICJ will eventually rule on it. Maybe they'll say that Israel, failed to prevent a genocide that is possible. But I think there has to be, like, at some point, like an understanding that the UN or the ICJ or the ICC is not going to save this region from a difficult negotiation, which neither side seems ready or willing or is being encouraged to actually participate in. Because I don't feel like anybody that wants to talk about, like, the genocide all day, like, I don't know, like, what's your conception of what a free Palestine looks like?
At the very least, Israeli troops completely outside of the borders and a Palestinian-run government. At the very least.
Sure, but like let's say that they completely withdraw. What are they withdrawing from? So like is all of East Jerusalem being left by Israel? Like it's not going to be given back because that's territory that's been like formally annexed at this point.
Well, if you ask me, it should be the 1948 borders. I get people sometimes might not agree with that. That's my personal opinion. But just at the very least, the borders before October 7th. At the very least.
Sure, but that, like, I think that's what Netanyahu wants to go back to, which is, I think, like the status quo.
I don't think that's what he wants. I think that's what he'll say, but I don't think it's what he wants.
Well, because prior to October 7th, like, the Gaza Strip wasn't formally, there weren't IDF troops in the Gaza Strip. Like, they still controlled the border, and there was a blockade and everything. Like, they control what goes in and out. But they're like, Hamas was the administration in the Gaza Strip, and there wasn't, like, IDF, presence there.
Unfortunately, when you oppress a people for about 80 years, they do rebel violently.
Okay, but when people rebel violently, they also get put down violently. So I don't know what the point of that.
I get that, but
yeah.
But
that doesn't do anything for us, right? Ideally, we want to get to some like end state where both people are happy. Do you think? So like the East Jerusalem question, I think is on the table, and then holy sites associated with that, and neighborhoods too, like where people lived. What about like refugee stuff? Because some people would say that a two-state solution is fine, but there should also be like an unlimited right of return for all of the refugees to come back into Israel proper. That's another issue on the table that nobody really seems, ready to address in any meaningful way.
And I think all of that is definitely a complex question. However, my main concern is to stop people from being indiscriminately bombed and genocided. So I understand that there's a lot more nuance, but that is my top goal here.
Okay.
But
so here's the issue, okay? So I appreciate the perspective, but I think it's worthless, and I think it actually plays into Israel's hands. Like, the idea is if there's some pain, if there's some bombings, if there's something, I would compare, I don't know what you're saying on Russia-Ukraine, but, like, I would want to see Ukraine restored to their former borders. But obviously there's a war going on, and the talking point that's often given is, well, we just need to stop the killing. The killing needs to stop. And, for some people, there are things that matter more than just an individual life. Like, Ukrainians that are willing to fight and die for their country don't just want all the conflict to stop and to lose, 30% of their country to Russia, much the same that Palestinians back and forth fighting. But then the status quo there, I think, when things are kind of frozen, like is materially favoring Israel because those settlements in the West Bank just get bigger and bigger and bigger, right?
I agree with you.
Yeah, so I wish that there was like a bigger push to have like a meaningful talk between Israel and Palestine. I don't know if you're familiar with like the 20-point plan that got proposed.
I am, and it doesn't really fully satisfy me. I appreciate the ceasefire. I'm pretty sure Israel already broke it.
Sure,
Yeah.
I think, but I mean, yeah, I've seen back and forth on who broke it. But regardless, like I would say that 20-point plan, I think is atrocious. I think it gives Netanyahu.
It's not a good plan, but
Yeah,
I mean,
because
it's at the very least a ceasefire.
Yeah, but it also allows Netanyahu to say they want to de-radicalize the Gaza Strip, whatever that means.
Right.
I don't even know if UNRWA like has permission to go anywhere over there anymore. The West Bank, now the Palestinian Authority, gets to be reformed in Netanyahu's vision. A guy who. Was part of the party that arguably invented the "From the River to the Sea" slogan, right? The Likud, and it just seems like if there's not like a serious conversation about like what does an end state of affairs look like, and we just like look for peace or a ceasefire. Okay, well, I mean, like I said, yeah, I feel like the status quo politically kind of favors the Palestinians because the UN makes these rulings and everybody screams apartheid, genocide, or whatever. Materially, though, I think it's favoring, I think, Israel. We had, 100,000 settlers, I think, at the end of 67, and we're up to like 700,000 settlers in the West Bank now, and it's just getting worse and worse, I think. But, I appreciate the perspective. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next. Try to limit it to 2 questions, I've been told. Go ahead.
Okay, 2 questions.
Go right ahead.
Hello, Mr. Destiny.
Hey, what's up?
Headbutt. I never formally debated, but there's one thing that I want to say. And
Okay.
I think it's the moral hazard in the world has gone for too long, and that we blame others for things that we say we have no choice in. But what happens is that we depend on context being like freedom. So like when people say I didn't have a choice, right? But the choice wasn't theirs. So the binarity of society is proving to be problematic, and it's not giving as much benefits as it is to the whole symptom like of the world, as opposed to like what the next step might be. So I was.
Can you give me give me an example of this? Like ground this out in something.
In Detroit Beyond Human, the androids are saying.
Wait, a real life example.
Okay, right, a real life. Okay, then
Good.
the real life example would be sex. Birds, they're invertebrates, and they're mammals, but they're not mammals. I'm sorry, but they're invertebrates. Their genes are passed. Instead of the female having XX, the male has ZZ, so to speak, which is equivalent to XX. But so the males are the progenitors of 100% certainty as to what genes is passed on, whereas in humans, females have XX, and then the males have XY. So in birds, it's the opposite, but we still base like the conscious acceptance of male and female is it's not working anymore. And I think the next step, what do you think the next step of society might be?
So are you kind of making this in reference to like trans people today in society, or?
I think they're the future.
Well, I mean, that's a take. So okay, let me rephrase this to see if I can understand. So we have like descriptions that we make about say like what sex and gender is, and then in the future there seems to be some issue. We'll say the issue, quote unquote, is trans people, and then we say, well, we can't categorize these people
Yes.
because we can't. We pretend that we can't means we are not able to, and then we
Yes.
like that. Yeah. Okay. So okay, this is gonna be kind of a boring, unsatisfying answer. I think that there's a lot of things when it comes to categories of things that we make that we talk about. I think that when you look at a lot of these things philosophically, we assume that we're standing on much stronger ground than we actually are. So people like to say when it comes to trans people, like, oh, well, like sex is a scientific fact, or gender is a social construct, or people will say things like like for abortion, like science can tell us when a life begins, or science can tell us whatever. But none of these things are really true. Like these are just kind of like observations. The way that things are like grouped is kind of like a human thing, right? Like why do we identify things as trees instead of like collections of bark or cells or whatever
bushes.
else?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure, yeah. And really, and some people get triggered or whatever, but like it's the same thing, honestly, even with like sex and gender. Like my opinion, every category is somewhat socially constructed. Like there doesn't exist in nature like the category of male or the category of female, but there's like collections of traits that seem to be true that we kind of group, and we group these things because generally they give us utility. There's like a reason why. Like when I ask you, can you bring me, like a fruit, and somebody brings you a fruit, it's probably because you want to eat it, right? You're looking to do something with it. So we group these things because they give us some utility. I think that when it comes to like sex and gender, I think there's still like a lot of utility in these categories. I know that there are social areas where people would like to either expand or change or kind of like mold these definitions a bit differently. I feel like for the most part, I think trans people can be kind of incorporated into the stuff that we have now. We've got transgender and cisgender if we want to differentiate, in any way. But I think you always have to be really careful if you're advocating for completely abolishing such a widely used category to incorporate like a really, really small percentage-wise number of people, because I think it's going to make everybody else really mad, and there's going to be like a social blowback, and people will be less willing to accept it otherwise. Is my kind of take, yeah. But so I would say that you wouldn't, but not because it's impossible, because you can't, but because you, at the end of the day, like every category is socially constructed, and we're just looking for what gives us the most utility, right?
Yes.
Sure.
It's just, can I respond or should I go?
Yeah, go respond. Yeah.
The Socrates said, "I think, therefore I am." I think that is an impression of his will onto everyone who says, "I think," right? It is his will, we credit that to him. So the existence of Socrates, just in a book, has expanded his life well beyond his natural means. And nowadays, we have a very hard time finding individuality. I mean, I can't even think of one thing that is like my own without it being inspired by someone else's derivative work, right? And I can't find a way to elevate the group consciousness without being seen as an aggressor, because they say they have the right to protect all that they've done, and that their right to protection is that they have no choice because they want to continue to live, and that the will to want freedom is not evil, but
sure. So I guess, like, are you familiar with the term the Overton window? So some people say that there is like a certain political imagination, I guess, that extends to a certain distance to the left and a certain distance to the right. And I think that there are two kinds of like Overton windows. Some people say the one refers to it, but like there's two kinds of things. You have like an established Overton window, and then there's like this discovered Overton window. So there's a range of what is politically acceptable that people think is politically acceptable, but then there's like a range of stuff that's actually politically acceptable. So I would say that like in 2016, one of the Trump things was that Trump discovered, inadvertently, because I think he's a fucking idiot, but Trump discovered that the actual capacity for right-wing populism was way larger than what existed in the imagination of even the ordinary individual American, right? And especially from political people. And so, like, I look at, when you're trying to push things socially or push things, creatively or whatever, like you have your bubble of like where everything is, but there's a second bubble of like what is the capacity for people to understand, and that second bubble is like what you're trying to expand into without going way beyond it. Like there is if you were to take late Beethoven and you were to play it for somebody, in like the late classical period, they think like, oh, okay, this is like pretty out there, but like maybe it's kind of cool, whatever. But if you were to take like, impressionist composers, or if you were to go further on and, to your Schoenbergs and your crazy serialistic guys or whatever, and you were to listen to these people in the classical or further back, your Baroque, whatever, they'd be like, this is trash. I can't understand this. And just the reason why is because as movements like exist and expand, there's like a capacity for expansion based on what is already kind of like socially there. But if you try to go too far, just nobody's going to have the psychological, emotional, social vocabulary to even understand what it is you're trying to do, I guess, if that makes sense, right?
Yes, it does.
Okay, cool.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes.
Just a reminder, speak up into the microphone.
Gotcha.
Try to speak up because it's kind of hard to hear. Go ahead, sir.
How are you?
Hey, what's up?
Good. I got two questions now because I was pissed off before, but I just came up for criminal justice reform because something was mentioned before you got up here.
Okay.
Now, a little background on myself. I spent my whole life being an activist and fighting for criminal justice reform. I fought for voices that were unheard and families that didn't think that they had a voice. I fought to end solitary confinement in New York. I fought to limit qualified immunity. I fought so that inmates could have at their own convenience the ability to call their families and children at home. I choose to look at redemption and second chances. And one of the things that made me distance myself from the Democratic Party fully is that I sat there and fought for these people. I saw it as rehabilitation and second chances. I saw a different side of people that society chose to see. And when I looked at the Democratic Party campaigning, the biggest thing that they focused on, instead of actually policies, which that would have been enough to win the election, but instead they focused on criminal conviction, and he's a felon, and he's a felon, he's a felon. And that resonated with me, because now I'm sitting here dedicated my time to defending these people and changing their visual in society and giving them a second chance. And that rhetoric tore all that down. It replaced that stigma on these people who have done their time back in society and trying to rebuild their thing. How do you feel about that?
I can understand where you're coming from, but I feel like from a perspective of somebody who might have been a felon and might have served time, I feel like that rhetoric is probably some of the most important, because the big deal with Trump wasn't that he was a felon, it's that he avoided all the responsibility, all the culpability, all the accountability of the crimes that he committed. I feel like the big issue with Trump, and the reason why people kind of like fixate on this, is because people like to pretend that he did nothing wrong, which I think is kind of like the worst thing you can do for somebody that needs to reform their behavior or needs to change, like the course their life is on. And I think kind of inarguably, when we look at the Trump second term, like the lack of accountability is incredibly obvious, because he hasn't admitted to any faults or any mistakes, and he is barreling down the same pathway, 10 times the speed.
So prior to Trump, should a convicted felon have been president? Could have convicted felon have been president?
I believe so, yeah, right?
They can't vote, but I'm saying in your opinion. Because that rhetoric says that this person, that's all I heard.
Oh, for the
convicted felon shouldn't be president. Convicted felon. And in my mind, nobody should be judged by the worst days of their lives. 1,000%. And our criminal justice is far from perfect, and there's a lot of people who are wrongfully convicted because of that flawed system. So I don't look at anybody. In my mind, somebody's guilty when they're actually proven to it, not because the system says it. And honestly, I trust my life and I have this my entire life, to convicted felons more than I would some regular non-criminal folks. So that's where that rhetoric came in. And the second issue that I want to talk about.
Just to speak on that first thing, I like, if you're a convicted felon, you should be able to run for president or do whatever else. Like, I'm a big believer that if you served your time or if you've gone through the process and you've gone through the system, then you're through the system, right? Like, I don't know what else, people. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you insofar as that's it. But again, I would say that there's like two things going on. It's a little too loud because I can hear the feedback a little on the speaker or whoever's telling it. Okay. The issue that you run into is for Trump is the fact that since he didn't serve any time and there was no accountability, that's one of the reasons why the Democrats went in so hard on them. But then the second issue is that the Republicans are the ones generally that talk the big, no criminals, no felons. We need to deport everybody. We need to put people in prison. And because of that, I think that's another reason why the rhetoric was thrown at Donald Trump. I think when you look at the two parties, I think it's pretty clear which one is a bit more vindictive when it comes to, like criminal conviction related stuff. It's the same. Wait. Once it gets turned down, don't turn it back up. Okay. Work on the speaker. Okay. I hear it over here. It's driving me crazy. Sorry. Okay, let me reset. I think it's similar to when sometimes when there are Republican candidates that get outed for like gay scandals or whatever, I think when people on the left make fun of them, it's not because they become anti-gay, but it's just a little bit hypocritical, because in every other circumstance, like, conservatives are so big on punishing crime and punishing people as much as they can. I'm sure you, I don't know what your particular stance is on guns, but if you've ever filled out like a 4473, you have to fill out that question of like, are you an unlawful user of narcotics, including cannabis, marijuana? And they got Hunter Biden on like he had a gun, but he also did drugs at the same time. And for a group of people that are ordinarily so pro-gun and so anti-ATF, it was crazy to see all of them cheering and clapping for that Hunter Biden conviction.
Well,
so yeah,
that's what the parties are. It's a bunch of hypocrisy. Like, for example, the last gentleman or the first gentleman talked about Palestine. Now, I would counter that argument in storytelling. Do you think that Native Americans same logic?
I'm not going to disagree there. I think that gets hairy. But I would say that the hypocrisy on the conservative side is around almost every single issue right now. I would say that the hypocrisy on the left tends to be with kind of like the more activist crowd, but like the legislative crowd or the legal crowd or the elected people, I think it's very different worlds there.
But at least I give the conservatives in the red the credit because they at least take stances.
Well, but
I think that was
one
of
the stances, and they change them constantly.
Yeah, but so do the Democrats.
I don't agree.
I absolutely agree. The fact that you can give an ambiguous answer and you can't. The fact that you mentioned October 7th like 40 times.
Yeah.
But what about October 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, and every day up until this point? What about every day before? The fact that since that time you could only mention one day. And your excuse is, the numbers. You can't even let journalists in there to get the right numbers. That's number one. And your excuse is because of the numbers. So basically, since they suck at genocide, they can't be genocidal. That's basically what that logic came to.
No, I think they could do a genocide pretty good if they wanted to. I mean, we could talk about other dates if you want. I mean, October 7th is one that came up, but
social media is the only reason why the Palestinian people have any kind of dignity and any life left. Because if that media blackout was not broken through independent sources, there would have been a full-fledged flattening of Gaza. And the fact that you can't even take a stance to make that full-fledged answer of it, that was the problem with the last election, is that they couldn't take one single stance to say, hey, you know what? Why? Because money talks.
Sure.
And I'm sorry, but you cannot put a value on somebody's life.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. You're just completely wrong, though. There wasn't widespread media in 48 when the Nakba happened. There were still 100,000, but there were still 100,000 Palestinian Arabs that were left in Israel. They didn't all get stomped then, so that didn't happen then. There wasn't widespread media coverage in 67 when they took the West Bank and the Gaza Strip and expanded into the Golan Heights. There are still Palestinians left there that weren't completely genocided without widespread media coverage. You had the whole first Intifada. You had the second Intifada. They were still there afterwards. So I mean, listen, I love Americans. You can come up and scream and get all hyped or whatever. But the reality is, if you don't have like a solution for the problem, you don't have an actual way to fix things. Like, you can get here and get indignant about it, but it's not going to get anybody anywhere, and that's all.
The great solution?
Yeah.
Let them figure it out. Why am I paying for it? Because you know what? When you start funding it or stop funding it, then a conversation's going to start.
No, then the conversation's going to end because then they're just going to kill them all.
Oh, okay.
I mean, they'll go turkey on it. They'll say, oh, well, we're not getting funding. We don't have any commitment to the West
Seems
anymore.
speculation, but the fact that you could
what's
justify...
What's insane about that?
What's insane about it is that the
when
world...
a country to the north of them, it killed 500,000 Arabs. It happened in Syria. We saw 60,000 children starve to death in Yemen, right, over the past 10 years. You've seen how many people die in
Congo and Sudan.
You've seen how many people... No, I'm not even going all the way, we don't have to go that far there in Africa. I'm just saying that the region is a very violent region.
How much of that are we paying for?
How much of that... I mean,
how much of that are we paying for?
Is that the only issue that you have with it?
No, it's not the only issue, but I have a problem.
So let's say that we stop supporting Israel monetarily. Are you like, oh, okay, well, if they want to genocide them, at least we're not paying for it. Now you're cool with it?
I'm not cool with it, but you know what? That is a leverage point. The same gentleman, I'm glad he brought the point up. Why release the hostages? Because Israel's bombing the shit out of them, killing their own hostages, bombing the shit out of them beforehand. That was their only leverage point, and you wanted them to give out their hostages.
What was the leverage?
Human bodies.
No. What did they get for the leverage? You said they still got bombed. They
still got bombed. The whole ceasefire deal was to at least hold on to that little bit of leverage, and then they returned them, and they're still getting bombed now.
The reason why they held on to them is because they wanted the fighting to continue.
Of course.
What else did they get? The fighting continued, didn't it?
It is going to continue because nothing's being done about it because there's no penalty, there's no repercussion.
I agree.
The fact that we've collected, the world doesn't agree on not a single thing in this world. Ever. And that's one thing that they can agree on is that there's a genocide and war crimes are being committed. That is the world against us. That has never happened in my history of my life. And you have viewers saying, oh, they're not credible. They can say whatever they want. How does that make sense?
The quibbling is over the specific term of genocide. If you want to say that war crimes have happened, I absolutely agree with that.
And your defense to why genocide is not a genocide is because the numbers aren't there.
No, it's not.
So because they suck at genocide,
it's because you don't care about any of the dead people. You understand that, right?
I don't.
If you want to sit up here and you want to obsess over the use of one term, and then you want to go back to the status quo, which, by the way, that's what Netanyahu wants anyway. That favors Israel. The status quo is good for them. If you just want to obsess over the word, fine, the whole world can say it's a genocide. How far have they gotten? How much is the Declaration of Genocide from the 57th Independent UN Commission? How much closer? No, tell me, how much closer has it gotten them to an actual peaceful agreement? We're at the 20-point plan, which is Netanyahu's wet dream. How much of the genocide accusations helped? I want you to tell me how much the genocide accusations have helped.
I'm going to tell you how it helps.
Okay.
Of those killed, how many were Hamas and how many were women and children?
I didn't hear an answer to my question.
How many
I want you to tell
were children?
I want you to tell me how much has the genocide accusations helped? How much closer are we now than we were to October 6th?
It has helped a lot because when that word started being brought out, more investigations started happening. And people started doing it, and organizations that are not affiliated with either side started putting their foot forward and saying, hey, let's see if this is actually true. These numbers haven't moved up at the scale that they were moving up at a point. Let's see why that is. Where are journalists? Why aren't our organizations that are unaffiliated not being allowed in? Why is aid not being there? Why are people starving? All of that happened because we started using those trigger words. So because we started using the words is the reason why they started actually happening.
Gotcha. So nothing has happened. Nothing will happen, right?
In the future of it, the strategy, if I wanted to genocide a people, what I would do is stop the reproduction. So I would kill the women and children, which are the next generation in line up, and hopefully stop going down from there. You know where they did that? The United States did that to Puerto Rico when they tried to sterilize the women in Puerto Rico to control the population. Bet you don't speak about that. Did you know that? Did you know the United States? I used to be.
I bet there's a lot of things that I don't know.
Used to
you know,
defend.
the largest revision in death in the Gaza Strip was the revising down the number of women and children killed because they realized that those numbers initially were there was a huge discrepancy between the Gazan Health Ministry and
reported
the
by
media
who?
arm, reported by Hamas and reported by the Gazan
Now-
Ministry of Health. But I'm just saying that like at the
Where
end
do
of
the
the day,
Hamas leaders live?
well, right now I don't even know how many are left alive.
Where do they live? Do you think they live in Gaza?
Well, they were getting killed in Qatar and in
Oh,
Syria.
so they're not.
A lot of them weren't.
in
No,
Gaza.
correct.
Okay.
I think
so
Sinwar
just
was
like when
killed
we
in
target the
Gaza, and Dave
cartels
was supposed to
in
be
other
Gaza,
countries,
but-
the cartels, a lot of those real, actual cartel leaders live here. So you can kill the pawns of Hamas all you want, and all you're doing
well,
is
they killed
creating
the
a
leadership of
perpetual.
Hamas as well, right?
One guy, and
No,
if we even know that that's
way
the guy.
more than one guy, and we do know they killed a lot of Hamas leadership.
Gotcha.
Can I just say, okay, my issue with this is that, okay, because every time I debate, people that are on your side, I understand the pro-Palestinian side is people assume that I'm this crazy Zionist. The Netanyahu's behavior has been insane. I think that the amount of death has been crazy. I think that there are like clear examples.
And he gets praised here like a hero.
Yeah, because boomers love fucking Israel because they're boomers and they're retarded. I mean, I agree with you. It's crazy. It's horrible. But like when the fixation just becomes like, as long as we declared a genocide, like we're good. It's like that hasn't gotten us anywhere. We haven't gotten anywhere. All the terms, all the apartheids, all the genocides. Bet Salem is like the organization in Israel that's been keeping
Nothing
track of the
has
Palestinian
gotten us
issue.
anywhere.
I agree, but what has to happen is like a real thing needs to happen. So like right now, Trump is a total Israeli sycophant. So the U.S. won't do anything because Trump just wants to move on from it.
We spent
right?
2 years under Biden or a year under Biden of it.
True, but I mean, like Biden at least had a little bit more restraint on the Israeli side than
No, he
Trump
didn't.
does on Netanyahu. You think that
He said a shit ton of money for that to happen.
yeah, but do you think that Trump and do you think that Biden gave the same length of leash
I
to
think they're
Netanyahu?
two birds of the same feather. That's what I think.
So the political party that arranged the JCPOA, the
I'm not
nuclear
going to. So
agreement,
here's the
nuclear deal
thing.
with
You're not
Iran-
going to convince me party rhetoric. I'm people over party all day, every time.
People,
I don't
what
listen.
do you talk about?
I can-
Parties are the government that run our foreign policy.
Yeah,
The people don't
unfortunately,
do-
that's the creation
that's
that
not
y'all did.
that's the
And that's the
apparatus
reason why
of
we have
government.
no, absolutely not. Parties are the destruction of this country.
That doesn't make it. It's like saying I like white blood cells more than the immune system for fighting disease. It doesn't make any sense. You have to have the whole apparatus. A bunch of people are going to pick up rifles and go to Gaza and fight off the IDF. Like you have to work through the establishment system that, right?
I'm glad you're not leading our military strategy, for damn sure.
How many wars have ended because a person took? Like, what are you talking about?
First off, the fact that we are having these barbaric wars in modern day times is ridiculous. The fact that it's costing us this much, the reason why I bring up the cost so much is because do you know how much it costs to fix homelessness here in America?
No, it's
estimated about $20 billion a
yeah,
year.
there's no way that's true.
There's no way?
I don't think so.
There's no way.
I don't think so.
All right. Well, I mean, I guess you're right, because if you think about it, if only you can kill off half of Gaza with, 100 billion? There's enough to kill off all the people. I guess you can't feed them.
Well, I mean, if you were actually indiscriminate bombing, you could probably do it for a lot cheaper. But what is the estimated number of homeless people in America? Do you know? I'm not trying to quiz you.
I don't know the exact number, but I know 18% of that number is veterans.
Okay. Isn't this like do you know the number, Brian? You should know this. Now, number of total homeless people in America. Who knows it? I'm going to make a guess that it's in excess of 1 million people.
Too many.
My guess is in excess of 1 million people.
Too many.
So when somebody says like $20 billion would fix it, like what would that be, like $20,000 a year per person? Like, and it's probably the number's probably greater than that. Like, I think homelessness is an issue that requires money and like political will. But because everybody views homeless people as either political props or subhuman, I just don't think there's like the will in America to get anything done. And because Republicans won't talk about it because they all moved to the West Coast.
But that's where it comes to political party polarization, like I mentioned. The parties are the ones creating the divide.
Yeah, but
for example, who has
you,
run Chicago for the longest time is Democrats. So the Republicans use Chicago, which is one of my favorite cities here in this country, as such a negative, crime-ridden country. And I've walked the streets of Chicago. I've been on the South Side, where they say is the worst parts, and it's a kind of sketch sometimes. But that's everywhere you go.
Yeah, I agree.
But the fact that they have, in the time that they've run Chicago this whole entire time, haven't said, hey, let's work on Chicago and put the resources where we really need to be so that they can stop using that as a talking point, that's where I have a problem. But because the divide and polarization keeps us apart, that's the reason why parties suck.
Okay, I'm curious. Let's say that we want to fix homelessness next year, and you could give one party all the power, the Supreme Court, Congress, and the president. Do you think that the Republicans and the Democrats would have the same capacity to fix that problem, to take the same approach?
Neither of them. It's not. It's not beneficial
for them. So if you had to pick
them.
one, you think it's the same? You think it's a wash either way?
I don't think I should pick either one. 56% of all registered voters right now are independent voters. People are leaving their parties in droves. That number before the 2024 election was only about 54, 53.
Are you thinking about people that haven't voted, or?
No, I'm talking about registered voters right now are 56 to 57% independent registered.
That sounds way too high.
No, that's not true.
That is absolutely true. Check it out. Yeah. Nevada won. Nevada is a purple, whatever color you want to
is
put
that
it.
just in states that don't require you to like be registered
That
to a
is
party to vote in the primary?
National Voter Registry.
Okay, regardless, do you
And
think
the reason
that,
why is because of every one of you young folks out here. Because
Do you
y'all are
think-
at least doing the due diligence
do you think-
to sit there and register like you want. You're not saying, I'm going to pick a side and put on a team jersey. You're saying, talk to me. Let me hear what you got to say. Because they're the reasons why these elections have changed ways.
Sure,
They're
but
the
at the-
reasons
at
why
the
we're
end of
here
the
right
day-
now. And then you're choosing to do this now after Charlie Kirk was doing it for 16 years or however many years because he knew that the people, the young folks, were going to be the future. And that's why you're here trying to imitate the exact same thing.
First
but
of all, I'm not
you're
trying to.
spitting
I
the
would
same
never. I
rhetoric.
would never be so low that I would imitate such a loser like Charlie Kirk. Number one, okay. Number two, okay. I've been doing these events for
Charlie
a long
Kirk
time.
had the balls to talk against Israel.
So I have the balls to talk about it. What do you mean? I was in Israel, in the West Bank. I've been probably to Israel and
Yeah,
Palestinian
go to
territories
Gaza.
More than, yeah, I've been there. Yes, to the West Bank. That's Gaza.
That's
not
that-
Gaza.
that's not
I've been
Gaza,
there.
homie.
I can't go to
That's
Gaza right now while it's
Palestine.
being bombed.
It's not
I can't go
Gaza.
to Gaza while it's being bombed. But I've been to the West Bank. Okay, I've had a Palestinian tour guide. I've been there. I've done the homework. I know more about it than you, and more about it than Charlie definitely.
Oh,
Did.
you
I
do.
promise you.
You
Okay.
do.
Number one. Number
You.
two. All right.
You want to
At
hear
the
my
end of the day-
you want to hear my credentials on Gaza?
At the end of the day, you have to work through some apparatus. When you come out, you just say, "Oh, both sides are the same. Oh, who matters? It doesn't matter who you vote for. Oh, let's all be independent." Nothing's gonna get done.
I'm gonna tell you my credentials on Gaza.
Okay.
So after October 7th, I was running for office, and someone very close to me reached out and said, "Hey, I have a family, an American family in Gaza stuck." Beginning before the heavy, harsh bombing started. And I said, why can't they come out? They said, they're not letting anybody out. I said, but they're American. They said, they don't care. Their passports lapsed because of the delay, and they weren't allowed in Jerusalem to get their passports reinstated. Do you know I took that job on. It's a family of 5. I contacted every single Democratic congressman that I had contact to. One, they didn't care because they were Utah residents. So they're like, contact that representative. I'm like, I'm contacting you. You sit next to that person. Talk to him. No one wanted to help. The one person that actually did help me, surprisingly, I won't say his name, but is a Republican hella Zionist on TV. But I at least sat down with him and he said, you know what? I don't care where they're from or who they are. I agree with you that they are Americans. Let me get their passports expedited. Let me see what we could do. And we did it. We got it there. We got it done. We sent them to Egypt and they got them through Cairo and we got them out of Gaza, that family of 5. Where were the Democrats then?
How old were the people in this family?
One, the youngest was 10, turned 11 as soon as he got back here.
How
And
do they get into their passports were close to expiring? Normally, if it's within 6 months, they won't even let you in another country.
They moved there. They had initially moved there for the grandfather's business.
To live in Gaza?
To live in Gaza. That's where they were.
Okay.
And then all of this stuff happened. They tried to renew their passports. They were not getting allowed in situations. We did that. A Republican Zionist congressman helped me get that done.
So are all Republicans good now? I don't know what
No,
I'm
but I'm
supposed to
just
take
saying
from that story.
that's
Like,
what happens. That's the result when you take party out of it. When you
No,
talk
that's
to
the
somebody
result.
as a person,
That's-
as part of, instead of their party affiliation, and
This
start
is
grouping
great
everybody
for the
together.
5 people that you helped, but what does this have? This doesn't get us
Well,
anywhere.
imagine
in
if
regards
I
to
can help 5 people. Imagine if you sat there, took a side, and said, "Hey, let me help another 5 people." I used to be anti-gun until I started getting informed of my own history. Used to be hella anti-gun, and I used to think, "Hey, the military." We're not going to overthrow the military. They have all this arsenal of everything going on. And then I got to travel and campaign all across this wonderful country. I met people of all different ages, genders, and races. And I was in Alabama, one of my great friends, and he sat there and he said he loves his gun. He has every fucking possible arsenal of gun you can have. And I said, why do you like it? And he said, well, because I'm going to defend my rights. And I said the same thing. Your military, they're never going to turn. I used to think that. They're never going to turn the military against us. And what are you going to do? And he said, I'll tell you what I can do. I'm probably going to die, but I'm going to take out 5 people. And if I could take out 5 people, numbers are coincidental, someone else can take out. The people overpower it. And I used to think that the United States would never turn their army until I found out in 1950 when Puerto Ricans like myself were trying to fight for independence. And the United States bombed Puerto Rico. U.S. citizens. That magically gets erased from history. So there you go.
Okay.
We gotta go.
All right, I'll go.
All right, quick announcement. We are going to take a 2-minute break. We're going to try to fix the audio issues, I've been told. If you can't hear, we ask that you sit up a little bit closer. There's a lot of people that are way in back. Move up a little bit closer. We're going to fix some audio issues, a quick 2-minute break, and then we'll be back. You guys can form a line if you want to come up here. Okay, we'll just take 2 minutes.
Also, thank you very much for chatting with me. Thank you, thank you.
Do you guys want free hats? We have more free hats. We're just going to throw them at you, and they'll go in the dirt. If I don't. I'm not a football player. I know who you are. I'm sorry.
Let's have some fun. Oh, Jeffrey the Epstein giraffe loved the younger dames and frolicked with Donald Trump in a place called the Epstein Place. Oh, Jeffrey the Epstein giraffe loved Donald Trump and frolicked with him around younger girls and all that nasty stuff. Everybody, oh, Jeffrey the Epstein giraffe loved the younger dames and partied with Donald Trump on a place called the Epstein Place. Oh, Jeffrey the Epstein giraffe loved Donald Trump and partied with underage girls and did all that nasty stuff. Hell yeah. Jeffrey the Epstein giraffe knew his time was short, so he said, let's jump on the plane and go to Epstein Island and get some 14-year-old sport. Jeffrey the Epstein giraffe loved Donald Trump and frolicked with him with all the young girls that did all that nasty stuff. Everybody, Jeffrey the Epstein giraffe loved the younger dames and frolicked with Donald Trump on a place called the Epstein Place. Oh, Jeffrey the Epstein giraffe loved the younger girls and partied with them on Epstein Island with half of the senators in Congress. Hell yeah! You guys are beautiful. Remember, we got free donuts. We're giving out, I think, free keychains and laser pointers. We're gonna have a lot of fun with the cops on the roof with those laser pointers. Have a great time today. Remember, this is out of love. We want the new Grateful Dead parking lot here. Community. Take a donut. These are high-end donuts. Oh, Jeffrey the Epstein giraffe loved the younger dames and frolicked with Donald Trump on a place called the Epstein Plain. Oh, Jeffrey the Epstein giraffe loved Donald Trump and frolicked with him and younger girls and did all that nasty stuff. Hell yeah. Jeffrey the Epstein giraffe loved the younger dames. Everybody like Newport. Frolicked with younger girls on a place called the Epstein Plain. Jeffrey the Epstein giraffe loved Donald Trump and frolicked with him on Epstein Island and did a lot of nasty stuff. Hell yeah! Guys are beautiful. Robbie Roadsteamer, I just got out of a nice detention center in Portland. I'm glad I'm back. God bless you guys, especially you guys on the roof watching birds up there or something. God bless. Have a great night. Well, shake it up, baby, now. Force lights out. Come on, come on, come on, come on, baby, now. Come on and force them all out. Yeah, force ice out. Yeah, you look so good. Yeah, you coming like without a warrant. Just like I knew you should. Shake it up, baby, now. Force ice out. Come on, come on, come on, come on, baby, now.
Test 1 2 1 2. No feedback, right?
How about this? You want to check? Check 1 2 1 2. Check.
Hey, you're checked. What's up?
Check.
What's the story behind
Robbie
the
Roadsteamer.
What's the story behind the beret thing?
Oh, I don't know. I'm going on Tim Pool's show Friday. I know you've done Tim Pool's show, and I'm going to see if we could trade hats.
Oh shit. Okay.
Yeah, we'll
Good
see.
luck.
Yeah,
Don't
we'll see
touch
about
it. He'll
that.
attack you. He gets real sensitive about that.
I know. How are we doing here? Are we good to go? We need to form a line. All right, we have one person here. We need to form a line. This is the legend Destiny over here, everybody. You get a chance to debate him one-on-one. So if anybody else wants to come up and debate, now's the time to do it. Form a line right here. How's our audio? We good? Good to go? All right. Come on up here. Young lady, thank you.
Not a lady, but thank you.
You gotta lower that mic stand. Okay. Jeez. Debate tactics.
I think that's good.
Try to speak up if you can.
Okay.
Yeah, try to speak up.
Okay.
Okay.
Hi. I'm Winter. I just have a question.
Yeah, what's up?
Why do you think a two-party system works?
Why do I think a two-party system works? Well, I mean, it's worked for 200 and whatever, 40, 50 years, right? As opposed to like a multi-party system or whatever?
So, I learned this in government recently. And the Founding Fathers, they had a whole Federalist paper about factions. And that... Sorry, I'm like really anxious. I don't like talking in public.
I'm aware that when the country was founded, every original or a lot of the original framers were very much against any political parties. They hated the concept of it. Yeah.
But there's also the fact of if there's a two-party system, it allows one party to have all of the control. By having multiple smaller like factions and stuff throughout the government, it makes it harder for the majority to take control. So because there's two majorities, it's never gonna it's gonna be a back and forth. One party's gonna have control, one party's gonna have control. Instead of it actually speaking for like everybody, it's just speaking for the majority and not everybody.
So I understand what you're saying. Personally, I think that when people criticize the two-party system, I think they romanticize multi-party or multi-faction systems a little bit. So like in an ideal world, we're thinking, well, in a two-party system, it's easy to ignore like the will of some smaller group of people because their voice won't be heard. But I think the issue you run into when you look at the big like multi-party systems is sometimes there'll be these like minority parties, and in order for the large party to form a coalition government, to form a government, they end up having to make a ton of concessions to these smaller parties, and then you have in this world where now people feel like their voices are being heard because just a few like small number of parties are controlling so much of the voice of the government. Similar to in the United States, we complained a lot about Manchin and Sinema seeming like they had a disproportionate amount of control. But I think in multi-party systems, I think you can run into similar issues where you have to form a majority government with like a Green Party or something. You're like, oh God, we have to make so many concessions to this like really proportionally small number of people. I agree that there are issues with like a two-party system, but I think they crop up in other ways in multi-party systems as well.
I think that's true, but sorry, I had a thought.
You're good.
Wait. So you're saying like a small number of people, but the thing is, when you're thinking like the percentage, there's 8 billion people in this world. A small number of like a small percentage is not a few amount of people. It's like 1 million people. It's 1,000 people. It's 2 billion people.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just red versus blue. Like there's so many like subcategories and so many things, and red versus blue doesn't represent. Hold on. I don't think I'm wording this right. Red versus blue, it doesn't. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. Like the idea is that like let's say we're trying to vote on like what to eat for dinner, and there's like pizza versus like barbecue, and those are like the two largest groups of people. But there might be like a ton of other people that they want to go to some other completely different place, but just because pizza and barbecue happen to have the most, that's the only thing that gets represented in the mainstream political discourse, basically, right? So even if I might call something like a relatively small party, that relatively small party might still represent the voices of thousands or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of voters, depending on the size of the country. I understand that perspective. There's two kind of like ways to address this. The first way is that ideally, even in our two-party system, there's some room for a diversity of thought because you have primaries where you can have radically different candidates from radically different areas. So, for instance, like Congresswoman AOC or Senator Bernie Sanders is going to be quite a bit to the left of, say, the two senators from Georgia, Warnock and Ossoff, who are going to be a lot more moderate in their perspective. So, even within the same Democratic Party, ideally, we're representing like a diversity of opinion. The Republicans used to be like that until they turned into a cult. But so even in that, you have some diversity of opinion represented. The second thing is that if we were to truly have a government where every single voice was represented as evenly or as strongly as possible, you might run into a gridlock issue where you can't pass or do anything because now everybody has an objection to a thing, and there's no way to move forward on some particular project.
So, our party makes everything very black and white. Like, we can run into gridlocks, but we can run into a gridlock now.
Yeah.
The point of having a smaller, like more representation in the government is to prevent the majority of taking control. Because right now he has control of the Congress, he has control. How many judicials are Republican right now? I don't know the number, but I know he has control of the Congress.
Sure.
And
so I understand what you're saying in terms of majority control. I think you have to be careful when you analyze this government like as a government because a lot of things are not working as they're supposed to be working.
Because humans are naturally flawed.
No, because Republicans are very flawed.
Well,
so the one issue you run into is that right now, like the Republican Congress has just completely given up all their power to the president. They're happy to let the president do whatever he wants. Like Johnson's not even seating people right now, in the House because he's happy to just let Trump, run roughshod over the entire government. And then you don't have any kind of accountability. Nobody's going to impeach Trump, from the Republican side. So Trump is basically given unfettered access to do whatever he wants. He's openly said kind of that, like, if the court doesn't like a thing, who cares? We'll just keep trying or whatever. So I understand that there are issues with like polarity or with gridlock or lack of action or it seems like stuff right now, but it's hard to analyze this current government as the system government it is when in reality there's a very particular type of Republican right now that's happy to see everything get destroyed, and I don't know if a different type of government would necessarily prevent that.
Thank you.
Wait, can I just...
Go ahead quickly.
When you say that just Republicans are flawed, it makes it very black and white. Because humans in nature, we are flawed. We are selfish, but we are also cooperative. We're very complicated, and because we are complicated, that makes everything else complicated. So by saying that, this one party is bad, it makes like, then this party is the good one. But that's not how it is. There's a lot of black and white in our world, and it's not just black and white. There's a lot of gray area. And by just being like, they're bad, they're good, or these people are bad because of this and this and this, and these people are good because of this and this and that, it takes away from like the complexity of how we are in nature. And if we start to understand how complex we are and start to stop making things so black and white, I think...
I understand what you're saying, but I think you also have to be careful not to get lost in the complexity because sometimes there are just bad actors. And I think that right now, I think the Republican Party is like wholesale committed to the destruction of our political system, such that I wouldn't try to like two sides that or say there's some complexity or nuance. I don't even know if Trump has enough brain cells to do complexity or nuance right now. And every single Republican is like willing to follow along. I do agree that like we've gotten worse with gridlock and we've gotten worse with polarity in our system, and we need to take time to address that. But right now, I think it's okay to be relatively black and white because the Republicans have been just so outlandish on so many different issues. Like, I don't know how I would two sides like blowing up random Venezuelan ships right now or fighting to deport Venezuelans to, camps in El Salvador that we're paying for, or saying that we can't afford to spend money on our people at home, or we can't afford to help the people in Ukraine, but we can't afford to give however much money Israel wants, or we can't afford to do currency swaps with Argentina. Like these are things that I think it's almost impossible to two sides, let alone all the other like blatant corrupt stuff like the crypto coins and the DOJ stuff and the political persecutions and everything. So yeah, I think that I agree with you in a macro level, but like at this particular moment in time, I think that there is like one clearly bad acting party that needs to be kind of like reined in.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
If you're having trouble hearing, please come up a little bit closer. We're forming a line here. Welcome to the Unfuck America Tour. Thanks everybody for being here. Come on.
Hello.
I'm kind of just winging this.
Yeah,
so,
no problem.
all right. What's your opinion on tough on crime?
What's my I don't know. I don't know. Usually people say tough on crime I feel like are just kind of cruel or mean or don't really care to fix any issues, but like I think sometimes liberals are a little bit dumb on crime in that they either pretend it doesn't exist or they're way too lenient on things. So I think just the phrase itself doesn't tell me much, but yeah.
So like like harsher punishments, more strict laws, that kind of thing.
I mean, like I'm in favor. I wish we had more evidence-based policing and more evidence-based kind of like incarceration stuff. So I mean, like
So the system's stricter.
I mean, in some ways it maybe needs to be stricter, in other ways maybe it needs to be more lax.
So what ways should be laxed, and what ways should it be stricter?
And what I mean, I don't know. I'm not a criminal justice expert.
I have a bachelor's in criminal justice.
You have a what?
I have a bachelor's in criminal justice.
Oh, wow.
So that's why I'm curious.
Like my understanding is that like I know it's very unpopular with the left. But things like broken windows policing, that like there are certain areas that are, or there are certain environments that can induce more crime, like environmentally, not necessarily like how people are raised, but just there are certain environments that make crime more likely to happen, and that these are areas that can be police heavier. Like that's probably a good thing. When it comes to incarceration and stuff, I don't know. In terms of rehabilitation, like if there's more investment or stuff that we can do to help with recidivism, like what it means to have somebody come out of prison and have like a job and everything lined up. Like I know when it comes to people that are addicted to drugs, if you take them out of whatever environment for a little bit and then you put them right back into it, they're going to get addicted again. Like it's always going to happen. Yeah.
We agree on that.
Yeah,
but I was
like
just curious. That's
sure.
all. Thank you so much.
Oh, wait, what are your ideas? We're going to say something. Damn.
Fine, great.
You got the bachelor's, right?
No, yeah.
Yeah.
So the one that so there's all kinds of theories of crime, right? You have labeling theory, where if you label somebody as a criminal, they're more likely to relate with that theory.
Mm-hmm.
You also have deterrence theory, though, which says that tougher crime may be able to prevent more crime. Like you said, broken windows theory. I was just more curious because I know more of like a reformative side. People tend to think harsher punishment means less crime. It's not necessarily the case. Like if we look at which country's like locking up a bunch of El Salvador, I think is what the big prison. The trend in science says that it's going to lower crime at first, it's then going to plateau, and then it'll increase over time. Tough on crime only works in the short term, not in the long term, because you have people who then over and over again create more problems. They distrust in the government. The police may it has to be proportional to the crime they commit,
Yeah.
So if someone steals and you cut off their hands, what's going to happen is people are not going to trust the government in the long run because it's not proportional to the crime that they commit.
Sure.
Stuff like that. So that's what the big one I was going to come with is labeling theory. You label somebody as a criminal, they identify with that label, and then go on to commit more crimes.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. I view at the end of the day, I think also when it comes to crime, I kind of view it similarly to like education. Like, how do you make a good student? And it's like, well, there's like 20 different things, and if you change just like one of these things, it's not going to help much. It has to be like a lot of different things. Like if you throw an infinite amount of money at a school, but the kid comes from a super broken home and they live in a really fucked area.
Yeah, they have to want it. They have to, they have to want to get the education.
Yeah.
You can't just tie somebody down and make them do education.
True, but
I
like
feel
the
like it helps
wanting to do the
people.
education also comes from like parents that are invested in your education too, and they want you to go to school and they like care about.
What do you do when someone's parents don't want to do it and they're not raised to know those values? You can't strap them to a chair and make them.
Yeah,
But
I agree. That's really hard.
At the same time, they should, because education rates, when you get your master's, your chances of committing a crime drop a ton. When you get your PhD, it's almost zero. And so do we make people get educated? Probably not. That's not the right decision. But at the same time, what do we do for those who don't want to? Because one of the biggest contributing factors to committing crime is what? Lack of education.
Sure.
And trauma and all these other things on top of it. What do you do in those situations? I'm curious what your answer to that is. What do you think we should do?
Well, yeah, that's why I'm saying like the best thing to do is to Back to the Future and give them a better childhood. But like obviously that's not possible because there's so many.
So like resources.
So like I'm just saying that it's like because like for the parents to be healthier, there's probably some combination of like they need better economic opportunities so that they can work. So they need some like stable city. They need better maybe public transportation, maybe better access to like medication for health related issues. Like there's like all of these things kind of like are factors that play into it, and changing just one, like sometimes people throw a bunch of money into some public school system and it doesn't get better in 2 years and like, oh well, this is a waste of time. And it's like, well, there's a whole bunch of other stuff that has to happen too. Yeah.
It's more of early. Okay, this is a good question now that I thought about it. Do you think we should put more researches into the youth or into the people that are old, not old, but like adults already committing issues?
I hate old people.
Okay.
I think early childhood development, I think it more and more is like seen as like an incredibly important and formative part of a person's life in terms of determining like, likelihood of being a criminal or committing crimes or whatever later on. So yeah, like investment early I think is really important. Yeah.
Oh, we agree. Thank you so much.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Thank you. UNLV Rebels. Good football team.
This is a little too tall. I'm not that tall, man.
I got you.
Thanks. First of all, I just want to say hello, and I'm Maddox. Very nice to meet you.
Hey, how's it going?
I'm good. How are you?
Pretty good, pretty good.
I got 2 questions for you. So the first one is, I'm not really like a political person per se, but how do you feel about like, I guess society as a whole? Do you think like that society's flawed?
I mean, no, I think American society is perfect.
You think it's perfect?
No, I'm just kidding. I mean, yeah,
No.
well, yeah, society has flaws. Or what do you mean by society flawed?
I'm just wondering, like, what flaws do you see in society that make it that way? I'll get where I'm going. Just start listing stuff.
What flaws do I see in society? I mean, I guess, it's a loaded question in that it assumes a lot of my values. So for things that I care about, I think one of the biggest flaws that we have is we live in like very separate realities at the moment. So our information landscapes are different, and the way that we evaluate information seems to be leading us down very different roads. I think that's one of the biggest issues we have right now. Yeah.
And then my follow-up question for that is, do you think people who do fall short in that sense, do you think they can be forgiven for what they do? Do you think like they can like make up for what they've done?
Can they make up for it? Yeah, of course. Can they be forgiven? I mean, of course. There's an interesting issue of like, what is the responsibility of a person at the end of the day? Like, especially in a democratic society, like that's a hard one. Like, to some extent, like we would all like to imagine that in the 30s, we would have never been Nazis, or in the early America we wouldn't have been people that were pro-slavery. But who's to say? And how much of an excuse do you have, as life goes on, to be racist, right? Like, you ideally nobody's ever racist, but like if there's a guy who's racist in the 1770s and thinks that like black people are subhuman compared to white people, it's not good. But like if somebody thought that in like 2025, like we would view that person in 25, like, okay, well, damn, dude, something's not working here,
Yeah.
So, but that's a sliding scale, and at what point do you give somebody like enough credit or agency to be like, listen, bro, like you can do better than this. Like you're fucking up right now. You should be
All right, so where I'm going with that is I really have I feel like I have a decent relationship with Jesus. Like I wouldn't say I'm like religious per se, but like I love having that relationship with him. So it's like being able to know that somebody's forgiven me for what I've done, even if it's bad, knowing that I'm forgiven for that just makes me feel better. And it's like knowing that in the Bible it says that everybody falls short of God's glory, but he sent his son Jesus to die on the cross for those sins so that we're forgiven and that we can have a life with him. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
I understand what you're saying, but I think a really important part that gets skipped. What do you mind saying? What denomination you are?
I'm a Presbyterian, but like,
okay.
I just say I'm
do you guys
a
ever
follower
like
of God.
do you like say do you ask like priests for forgiveness or whatever?
No, that's Catholicism.
Yeah, okay. So I was born and raised a Catholic, right?
Yeah.
So we do reconciliation, and the common question that always gets brought up in first grade is everybody's like, oh, can I like bully my sister an unlimited number of times and then go ask for forgiveness over and over again? And the thing that they always used to talk about for us was like, you have to be genuinely sorrowful, and you have to do contrition. You have to make things. Yeah, you have to do things to make things right. And not repeat the same thing over and over again. So I think that giving forgiveness is one thing, but I think it's important for somebody to realize first that they've done a wrong. Like you have to know that something has gone wrong for you to even begin that journey to forgiveness, right?
Yeah, I get what you're saying, and it's like, I feel like that's like the whole point of, what the Bible calls it is sanctification, and that's just like growing closer to God with every step, like being able to repent of those things and actively work towards like being better in a sense, being more like God. That's like what he's looking for, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, there might be times where we will fall short again because we're human. We can't control, like, we're never going to be perfect. Like, that's just, society's flawed, it will never be perfect. But, like, actively being able to grow closer to, like, God's standard, like, we're never going to meet that. His standard's perfection. We'll never be perfect. And that's why Matthew 5:17, Jesus says that he came down to fulfill the law because he knows that we can't. And it's like, knowing that he did that, and that even though like we as people will never be perfect, that gives me a lot of hope. You know what I'm saying? And like being able to be, like I said, be forgiven, and like you said, like there's like a certain like thing to it, but like it's like as you continually grow closer, you're forgiven for like those things. I know I'm like going in a circle, but
yeah, sure, okay. I understand your perspective. I'm not religious anymore, so okay. What's your second question, or was that?
That was like my follow-up question. I was just saying, like, I just know that just being able to be forgiven by Jesus, that's a pretty good thing. But having that forgiveness, you know what I'm saying?
Okay.
That relationship. I guess one more thing that I'm thinking of, I'm trying to... Actually, no, I forgot it. But thank you so much. Have a good day.
Thank you very much.
You. Go Rebels.
Good. Okay, hi. So,
hey, what's up?
Oh, yep, my bad.
Sorry.
All right, So my question is, there's been a surge of controversies recently among Democratic Party political candidates. Folks like Jay Jones, who has said that you should put 2 bullets in the brain of one of his Republican colleagues in the Virginia state legislature, or Graham Plattner, who is running for Senate in Maine, who has just recently been revealed to have a Nazi tattoo on his right next to his nipple. So my question is, Republicans, in my opinion, essentially have no morals for their candidates. That's my view. So my question is, do you think Democrats should do the same, kind of throw morals to the side as long as they have the letter next to their name? Or do you think Democrats should kind of continue, oh, they go low, we go high, take the high road? What do you think?
I think that where genuine moral disagreement is, then I think that you don't support those people. But I mean, like, you could probably be a little bit wider for people that have said or done dumb stuff in the past. I'm not going to make a specific claim about the Nazi tattoo guy, because I've read bits of his story, but I've been traveling out recently, and I know that's come out, and then a lot of people, it's been a big thing. Like, if there's a guy who, I mean, like, people can change a lot in 10 or 20 years. If he did dumb stuff as a kid and he grew up and he kind of like outgrew it or changed, then, I would look over it. But if I feel like it's indicative of his current character, then I'd say, well, maybe this isn't the best guy to support. That's my view of it,
So what my knowledge of the situation is that he got it while he was in the military, but he still has it to this day. He got it while he was drunk. So you'd figure, and he's a military guy. He's a history buff. So you'd figure, if you know what this symbol means, even if you get it while you're drunk, you'd still probably want it removed.
Yeah,
ASAP,
I don't like.
Right?
I'm just not saying it's a strong claim because I haven't done the reading on it. But like, I've heard this. I've also heard that he referred to it by name as well at like a later point. I saw that come out, but I just haven't dug into it much, so I don't have a strong opinion on it. Like I said, if it's a thing that's like indicative of current character, then I would say this is probably not good. But like, in an ideal world, I want to flesh out a little bit more, just because the conservative side is just so debased these days. These are like the most unbelievable people ever that like, even if a dude had Nazi tattoos, I need more information on it. But Nazi tattoos are pretty bad though, so I mean, like, I just need more information.
So my question, though, more generally, is just, if they're the party nominee, do you still think we should support them no matter, even if they've made past mistakes that are abhorrent? Do you think, if they still stand by it, that as a member of the party you should continue to support that candidate? Or do you think...
I mean, I'd vote for him, over assuming they're not going to switch to Republican. At this point I would vote for him,
Right.
But in the primary process, hopefully we could produce somebody better. But otherwise, come election time,
All right. Thank you.
Sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Come on up.
Hello, Destiny.
Hey, what's up?
I have 2 questions.
Go for
First
it.
one is, do you believe the right-wing party or conservatives in general are more violent than the left-wing and liberals?
What do you mean by violent?
Politically, or just wanting to commit any act that doesn't, like, if they don't get what they want or policies are enacted that they don't agree with, that they go out in the country and commit violence, whether they initially don't mean to start to, or they still end it with violence, regardless of the option.
I feel like, I think so,
Okay.
I think there's also this question comes up a lot. I think there's something to be said for like status quo stuff too, and how this is a very wokey take, but how like systems do violence. So like, for instance, in the time of like slavery, right, when slave owning is legal, and then you've got some, like your Nat Turner slave rebellions and stuff, right? In these systems, it's always the enslaved people who are way more violent than the status quo people, because they're doing what's legal, which is owning slaves, right? But like that analysis is very unsatisfactory, because like, well, of course the people who are enslaved are going to be more violent. They're fucking slaves. Like, what the fuck? And of course the people who have the slaves aren't going to be as violent because their violence is legalized. Modern day comparisons, I would look at something like the right to have an abortion. When you look at conservatives and the fact that they have clawed back abortion in however many states they have now, effectively making it illegal. Like, if it's a 6-week limitation, that's effectively, I would say, basically illegal abortion. When you look at that, I think if you're a woman, I think if you're pregnant, that would feel like violence to me, that I'm like, oh shit, I'm like locked into this thing now, and if I don't have the money to leave the state, and I don't know if I leave the state and get caught, I might get in trouble. That feels like kind of a little, I would say that's a form of violence, right? So if there was one violent protester riot in response to a really restrictive abortion law, then the analysis would be, oh, well, look, the left is more violent here because you don't see the right wing killing abortion doctors, even though they have, right? But I'm saying hypothetically, But I'm saying, like, that analysis feels a little crude, or it feels like it leaves something to be desired, because, like, well, sure, but, like, if the status quo policy is kind of supporting a kind of violence, and then there's an uprising on the other side, is it really just the other side that's violent? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. All that said, I feel like the right wing is more violent in general. I think you could justify it even just, like, on a raw level, but yeah, that's my feeling on that. Okay.
I think with my own personal experiences, I mean, obviously there could be different statistical stats for countrywide, what everyone else goes through. I disagree. I think the left side is more fundamentally violent with things that they don't agree with, and they're very confrontational. I feel like
what's like an example of that? Because like my counterexample is going to be the immigration stuff recently, ICE. So like, what's the left wing equivalent to that in the United States?
For conservatives being violent in the country?
Well, so I would say that like ICE is a great example right now, especially of like conservatives just being over the top. And like, what's the left wing version of that, or the equivalent, I guess, that you feel where you're like, oh wow, okay, well sure, maybe ICE is in masks and they're doing crazy shit right now, but the left does this. Like, what's in your mind? Like,
my only comparison for large scale would be the Summer of Love. I served in the military for 8 years. I was stationed in Portland for 6 of those years, Miami in 2 years. I lived 2 blocks away from all of the BLM riots, to the point where you needed to get permission from command to be able to go in that area, and I lived in that area, so it was a whole special thing for me. I feel like I've been pretty conservative since 15. I'm 28 now, but
outside of the BLM riots, is there anything else, or is that's a strong pivot point for you, and that's going to be forever?
I think any violent action of like when people turned on Elon Musk, the left side turned on Elon Musk with Tesla factories.
What was that in response to, though? So that's a really great example, I would say, of like a kind of status quo violence, right? So inarguably, the USA cut of that program, which is probably going to lead to over 10 million people, 14 million, I think is the last time I saw people dead, right? And Elon Musk basically led the charge on that, however much he could with his ketamine-addled brain. But when you look at that happening, and then you see people set fire to Teslas in response, I don't know how many that ultimately happened. That is violence, I would definitely agree. But then it's in response to that cut. But I feel like nobody ever sees anything happening on the conservative side, and then they just see like the response on the liberal side, and then it's like, okay, well, they're more violent. Does that factor in at all, or do you consider that at all? Or
I think like I can be very reasonable. I can understand both sides with almost anything, even with like abortion rights. I can understand like women's rights of wanting to do that and respecting that and letting people live the way they want to live their lives.
How can you understand the side of cutting USAID, though, on the Elon Musk side? What's to be understood about that? It just seemed like a wholly aggressive, illegal, like, cruel.
I think there are plenty of organizations and programs that get a lot of money that the left side wants and the right side wants. I think both of them are going to affect a large group of people, no matter what it is, whether it's Elon Musk and him affecting that with USAID and cutting all the finances with a lot of government spending. I don't think it's going to be a win-win for either side. I think people will cherry pick very large events that happen and carry on to that. We can go back to this, like USAID and everything, or USAID. Like even majority of like my living in the Portland area during 2018 to 2023 roughly. I felt like I had to be very quiet about my beliefs and everything, because I've had friends and family members that live also in the area where they would be kind of excommunicated from work or losing friendships and all this stuff, to the point where it'd also get violent if you were very vocal about having any conservative rights. Obviously, Portland is a very niche city with
I understand.
with its views.
Do you think that you said you were in the military, though, right?
Yes, I was.
Remember, don't ask, don't tell?
I do.
Isn't that kind of a similar feeling where you have to remain kind of hidden about a certain belief, and if you say anything, you're going to be kicked out of literally your job?
Yeah, I can understand both sides with that as well.
Both sides of that? Of
like the military and their ideology of how they view people that way, and them wanting to get rid of them if they were vocal about it. Even like what today's policies of Trump trying to remove transgenders from the military. I can understand both sides of...
Well, I don't... I don't think that's true. I don't think, because if you say you understand both sides equally, you're saying one side, one thing moved you more to another direction. So it seems like you have more understanding for one side than the other, no?
I can have understanding for one side more than the other one, still not agree with everything that the right does or the left does. I can have some policies that are left that I lean with, some that are right.
Well, sure. So like in 2024, were you a Trump? Did you vote for Trump? The last election?
I haven't voted at all.
Okay. Would you vote for Trump, or do you think Trump was a better choice than Kamala, I guess?
Yes.
Do you still feel that way?
Yes.
With respect to, like, what thing, I guess?
I agree with his toughness on crime. I agree with the immigration policies.
So for toughness on crime, that's a good one, I think. Are you still in military, or are you out?
I'm out.
Okay. Don't you think it's kind of fucking insane that he's deploying the military to cities for quote-unquote law enforcement? Isn't that, like, kind of the craziest thing you could... Isn't that, like, literally... Not to do like a purpose of the Second Amendment Trump quote, which is things that he said, but like, isn't that like one of the worst things the federal government could arguably do is deploy its military against its own citizens and then falsely claim that it fixed all the crime afterwards, like he said in D.C. and in L.A., kind of?
I think when a part of the military gets sent out, when the police department in its own city are being told or just refusing to do anything of...
But that wasn't happening in D.C. or L.A., right?
Not that I know of.
It wasn't, right?
Okay.
So like... When you signed up, were you in the National Guard or whatever, or the
active duty Coast Guard?
Active duty Coast Guard. Sorry, yeah. I mean, like when you signed up for that, did you sign up to go, like if they were to say like you're going to go to Kansas City and arrest people, Americans that are smoking marijuana or something? Like, is that like in your job description? Is that like a thing you guys train for as law enforcement of U.S. citizens? That just seems like a really bizarre, horrible way to use the military, right? Because the military is used against enemies of the state, and when you're using them against your own population, you're saying that I need to deploy my military against my own citizens.
Well, my only argument with that is if Trump is classifying certain groups or people to be domestic terrorists in the country here, and it's supposed to be fighting domestic or foreign terrorism, whether Trump finally classified Antifa as a terrorist organization on domestic land, and I mean, I lived in the Portland area and saw that plenty.
Yeah, but we don't even have domestic terrorist designations, right? That's the thing that Trump just invented.
Okay.
And then, what is Antifa? What does that even mean? Like, Trump says that all the Democrats are Antifa. Like, the Democrats have been accused for 10 years of using George Soros to fund Antifa rallies, and I don't even know where I don't get any of this funding. Like, where is this happening from?
I think blanket statements in general are very crude.
Okay, Trump lives in blanket statements, right?
And I don't agree with him like on those type of things. Like, I don't think every Democrat or liberal or anything like that is Antifa. Or even if people are protesting, I don't think they're Antifa either. I think people have the right to peacefully protest.
Okay.
Can I just ask you one
yeah,
thing?
No worries.
Sorry, I don't mean to get involved here, but would you say tough on crime is January 6th insurrectionists, calling them hostages and patriots, and pardoning 1,500 people, 700 of them violent criminals? Is that tough on crime?
Jeez.
He called them patriots.
The mic guy. Oh, chill. Oh my God.
I have a very different view of January 6th. I do think there are bad people that obviously did bad things, and some of them should have been arrested, and I don't think all of them should have been pardoned, because I know some of them went off to commit more crimes after they were pardoned. I don't agree with that. I think criminals should stay in prison, and I know there's two very different views on January 6th and insurrectionists.
I guess it's crazy to me that like there's a very clear line that things have been said and then things happen as a result.
Mm-hmm.
And if it was on the Democratic side, people would be losing their mind. But on the Republican side, like it's like the cleanest lines ever. So at an event similar to this, Charlie Kirk was assassinated by my understanding is basically a young Mormon guy. And everybody, or he was Mormon, he was raised Mormon at least. I saw a lot of conservatives on Twitter saying stuff like, if your church didn't talk about this, you need to leave your church. And there were a lot of weird kind of like feelings about, I guess, like Mormonism bubbling up in places. And then a guy went and he drove to a Mormon church, the guy with the two flags in the back of his truck, and he went and he shut it up. And like nobody thinks to make any connection here at all. It's just like completely unspoken about. You have Donald Trump saying things like, come to the Capitol January 6th. We're going to protest. It'll be awesome. They show up to protest the results of the election that Trump told them was stolen. They commit, I would say, an insurrection, at the very least a riot or acts of violence. They get convicted, go to jail, and then get pardoned by Trump who has now pardoned every single person that's committed a crime to help him. How is this possibly the helping tough on crime guy when he's made every kind of crime acceptable as long as you're on his team? This is like the worst, most crooked, crony, criminal assisting president I've ever seen in my entire life. So I guess it's hard for me to understand. Yeah, sorry.
My only argument against that is like the second half of the video of Trump. Obviously, people are going to feel a certain way when he tells people to go protest. Obviously, people can go protest peacefully, even if it's outside of the Capitol. That's legally allowed. I think the second half of the video that was pretended to not exist or be aired on news of him telling people to not be violent, to do this peacefully and not do things that they shouldn't be doing.
You know that never happened, right?
No, I've seen the video.
You haven't. I promise you.
Okay.
The only in the hour speech that he made, he said, and I know you guys will be going down there and marching peacefully in the Capitol. He never said, don't do anything, don't be violent. That's all he said. And then the rest of the speech, like, I'm curious, in your mind, was it a coincidence that they all happened to go there and got violent and insurrected and delayed the electoral count? Was that like it just happened to happen then?
I think my only issue is with people, Trump claiming or other politicians claiming the request of the National Guard and Nancy Pelosi denying it, whether that was true or false.
Why would it matter, though? I love that. I'm sorry, it's hard for you because it's impossible to defend a position, because that used to be the position, but now we've seen in D.C., Trump had no problem saying he wanted the National Guard to go there for bullshit reasons, right? For crime enforcement, I guess, and now he says he's cleaned up all the crime. He couldn't do that on January 6th? He needed Pelosi for that one?
That part I'm not sure about.
Well, because it's total. It's
Okay,
not.
no
Yeah.
worries.
What? Oh, you're okay. You're good. Okay. Yeah, okay. Thanks. I appreciate the conversation.
By the way, the guy who's tough on crime is a 34-count convicted felon. I'm sorry, I just wanted to throw that in there. Had to throw that in there. Sorry.
Trying to be nice,
Not
guys,
that
I'm
Destiny
sorry.
needs my help, because he doesn't.
Yeah, you're being real aggressive. Okay. I'm going to be more aggressive with you now. So good luck. Be careful.
Okay, I got it. Okay, so I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So one of the themes of American history or political history is the increasing power of the executive, right? The executive branch in particular. When the founding fathers kind of founded the country, obviously it wasn't as complex. It wasn't even as big, right? You didn't have all these geographical areas. But as time passed on, right, you know, you have a movement from, dual level federalism to marble cake federalism, right? And you basically have, you know, their incorporation of the, like, Bill of Rights, right, into states because of the 14th Amendment, right? So I know it's a lot of context, but I'm going to get to the point. Do you think that basically what's happening with the Trump administration is an inevitable conclusion of the expansion of executive power? Because it's been very rare that even if you look back like as far back as Nixon or even at Bill Clinton, it's been very rare that Congress takes away more political authority to the president than they actually give. So, like, you know, one of the things you can think of that they've taken away from the president is, like, I think the power of impoundment, right? Which is, you know, the ability to basically not be able to remove stuff from, like, bills they don't want, like, to pay out and stuff like that. And then I think another one is something about, like, the Nixon ruling, I think it was about, like, immunity. I guess, sorry, I know if I'm all over the place. Do you think that Trump basically is the inevitable conclusion of the expansion of this continued expansion of executive theory, or do you think that you know, let's say maybe he loses this election, Kamala wins this, the next Republican president comes into power, do you think that we would be seeing basically everything that we're seeing right now?
So I think that Trump is a different type of thing than just expansion of executive power. I think Trump literally fancies himself as like a dictator. So I think it's a bit different. When you talk about the expansion of federal power, I think we saw a big clawback, I would say, in federal power back to the judiciary in the form of, was it Loper? Was that the case that overturned Chevron? And when Chevron was gone, the Supreme Court basically said statutory interpretation is strictly now within the purview of the court. The federal government is not allowed to decide what you guys think a law from Congress is. We're the only ones that can do that now. So I like that was probably a bit of a clawback. A claw towards the Supreme Court and less necessarily from Congress. But at the end of the day, like Congress, as you said, are the ones allotting a lot of the power to the president because they feel like the president needs the ability to act, you know, with vigor or whatever. I think that the issue with Trump is that Trump is not just acting like as a strong executive. Like, one, he fancies himself as like this unitary executive, so he can act through all things. So Donald Trump is literally giving orders directly to his Attorney General Pam Bondi to arrest political opponents because they make him look bad, right? That's a unique thing.
Yeah.
That's not like a thing that was ever like, oh, we should let the president do this. That was like Trump was like, I'm going to do this because I don't care about anything.
I mean, I obviously I'm not agreeing with Trump or anything. I mean, but there actually has been precedent for this in American history, right? You look at, for example, during the 1920s, right? I think I think during World War I and a little bit after World War I, right? You had basically Woodrow Wilson allow basically people the Palmer raids and stuff like that. This was executive authority being used to curtail, civil rights, right? Or you even have the expansion of power through Abraham Lincoln, right? During the Civil War, they shut down the press and stuff like that. So like I think it's interesting because I think that throughout American history there have been times where the president has grabbed onto more power, and then there's times where they let go. And I guess
so I do agree with that, but I would say that there are, when you're doing like legal analysis on stuff, there's this concept called stare decisis, where rulings that are made, there are certain reasons why we let some rulings stand.
Let the case stand, right?
Over time, yeah. And one of these elements, or one of these things that we think about when we think about like good rulings, are like rulings or decisions made in ordinary time, right? If somebody were to say like, oh, like I think that this is a good decision and we should follow it, and it was made like at the height of like World War II or something. It's like, okay, well, hold on, that was an exceptional time. I'm sure there are times where there were criticisms of Abe Lincoln related to detaining people without charges, habeas corpus, and everything else, and there were criticisms of like too much censorship, internment camps, obviously.
Yeah.
And like these are definitely things that can be criticized, I think, fairly. But it's also important to note these were like responses to exceptional things. Donald Trump, part of his response is he declared an emergency at the border with Canada because of fentanyl coming in. This is bullshit, okay? I think there's something to be said for, like, there were other commentators besides just me, okay? But I was one of them, and I cringe now. And, like, one of my biggest fears was Trump would come into office and do nothing and just take credit for everything Biden did.
I remember you said that,
I'm like, fuck this guy, But, like, to come in and to do so much insane stuff in response to like nothing is really going on. There wasn't like any crazy stuff popping up. Like Trump just came in and started doing a bunch of crazy shit. I think that deserves a different type of analysis than than analyzing actions in the shadows of like a massive world war, a massive thing. I think it's a bit different.
So I do have a follow up for that because I've watched your content for a very long time. And I think one of the things that you criticized liberals a lot for in the past was basically calling conservatives fascists, right? Calling like Donald Trump fascist, stuff like that. So kind of going back to like the context of the expansion of executive authority, right, throughout U.S. history. Do you think because obviously there are some people who interpret U.S. history building up to this, right? Like there are people who believe that the conservative movement that exists today, this was the building blocks for this type of ruler was kind of established around I think like the 60s. Obviously then you have Reagan and you have people in Reagan's cabinet who really advocated for I think the unitary executive theory. But then you obviously had his vice president which was George W.H. Bush, kind of more of a moderate. Then you obviously have Clinton, and then eventually you have George Bush, who obviously he expanded the federal government through the establishment of DHS. And obviously, there was all this covert stuff happening in terms of like people being tortured and people being disappeared, right, because of the war on terror. So I guess, do you think that this is the end result of all this politics, or do you think it's just simply Trump took advantage of the moment, realized that there were already these kind of predispositions, and then is that I'm going to go full in?
I think took advantage of the moment. Like when you talk about like the formation of the Department of Homeland Security, like I understand the need and the idea that we had, because part of the issues I think with 9/11 was our intelligence agencies just weren't communicating well with each other. So organizing all of these under like a coherent branch that would allow for information exchange easier, like that makes sense, right? And it's in response to a huge terrorist attack, right? Again, so I would view that as fundamentally different than the Trump stuff, where it just seems like George Bush at least was kind of trying to follow, I think, what he thought, was legally allowed or permissible within the office, the purview of the presidency. Donald Trump has no care whatsoever. Like his idea is every single branch of government should bow to whatever he wants it to do, or it doesn't even need to bow, he'll just do it anyway. And I do think that's fundamentally different. I do agree that the Conservative Party, I would say especially, has been building in this direction. I don't feel like the Democratic Party has been. Like if you compare like the authoritarian actions of Biden and Obama and Clinton versus Trump is just on a whole other level of crazy stuff, I would say.
Okay.
One more.
One more. Okay. I just one more question. I'm sorry, because this is the question I really want to ask you. Kind of building all towards this, right? So something that you said is
No, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, something that you said in the past is that you don't think that political lobbying is that much of an issue in the United States. Like, you don't believe that, like, political operatives have that much influence into what legislation.
Not as much as people say, yeah.
As people say.
Yeah.
But then how do you kind of square that away with, for example, the current Trump administration, right? You know, you think of all the think tanks that funded, you know, Project 2025. You think of all the judges, for example, in the first Trump and the second Trump administration, right? All the judges who are selected by people like in the Federalist Society and stuff like that, or even like with RFK, right? You have all these industry people from, you know, like supplement industries working indirectly with his FDA. So how do you kind of square the way saying that, you know, lobbyists don't have control or they don't influence our politics or our, you know, or these agencies and their
because I think the Project 2025 thing was way less about like enriching certain capital owners with a lot of money and way more heavily ideologically bent towards reshaping and reforming America into some kind of new place that it sees itself as being, right? Because there are a lot of policies and stuff and things that have come out of this with result to the crazy tariffs, the crazy immigration crackdowns, the horrendous trade relations with other countries. They're all like bad for capitalists. They're bad for business. You know, our military-industrial complex, our poor military-industrial complex can't make as many weapons for Ukraine as they would be, which you would imagine, right? If that's what they're doing. We've got all this weird competition now with China, and you know, selling processes over there is a lot harder. I feel like if money was in control, we would see a lot different stuff. We would see a lot of different things happening with regards to that. So I think the lobbyists can like influence things, especially in areas that we don't talk much about. And I'm not going to say they have zero impact, but I think ideology is really important. And sometimes people don't look at ideology at all. I think some people are very ideologically driven. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hey.
Hi, Destiny.
What's up? What's up?
Do you believe that oppressed people have a right to violently resist their oppressors?
So, in a broad sense, sure.
Okay. Give me an example where you think that shouldn't be allowed.
Probably when it comes to like invading territory and like murdering civilians and taking hostages.
So like what Peru did like in the 80s with like the Shining Path?
I have no idea. That sounds like an Japanese RPG to me, The Shining Path. I don't know anything about it. Yeah, sorry.
Okay, that was my only question.
Okay.
Was if you ever thought that was justified.
Oh, okay. I mean, like there are like in international law, you have like it's like jus in bellum and jus ad bello or whatever, but you have there are just causes for war, but that doesn't justify every action in war. So there could be like like you can say that like, you know, we want to resist an oppressor because we feel like we're being oppressed, but like you can't run around and kill civilians because of that oppression, right? That you'd still have to have some moral conduct in war. But
you have to like target the people who are oppressing you.
Yeah, arguably, yeah.
Okay, that was my only question.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Speak right into it.
Hello there, Destiny.
Oh. Hello.
Oh. Yeah. So, I want to go back to like about the topic of violence on the right and the left. We can all agree that political violence, no matter what side, is bad.
Well, we don't all agree on that. Apparently, conservatives don't think that their side commits any violence, and it seems like they think it's exciting and fun and cool. But I would say, yeah, we should all be against political violence. Yeah.
So, I want to just go back just over this past year because of political violence. Okay. And I think a good way to start off is of the big profile political violence, how much was on the right and how much was on the left?
The big profile?
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
So I guess the ones that does actually make more like, not say headlines, but like actually being reported and into the news itself.
I don't know. It's hard to say.
Yeah, so I agree that there has been some right-wing violence, especially with the two like lawmakers in Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, at least over this past year, has been much more from left-wing violence, and I just don't mean on the current Trump administration with Elon Musk and all that, but I'm talking about like people who just hold right-wing views, or like views that many others at least on the far left very disagree with.
What's like some examples of this, I guess?
So in the early, the first 3 months, I don't know exactly, but I believe it was April. Of course, there was the pro-Palestinian who murdered the two people who worked at the Israeli consulate in Washington, D.C.
Yep.
Coming from just a Holocaust memorial event. And, of course, his main objective because he was pro-Palestine, as much video shown.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, in May, and when in Colorado, there was a fire, another pro-Palestinian threw Molotov cocktails and a Run for Our Lives event, which was just for bringing back the hostages from from
Sure.
Gaza. And of course, there's a big profile one, of course, the Charlie Kirk assassination, but also
to be fair, I still don't think we know if that guy was like a radical leftist, but I know that's controversial. But
you can definitely say the reaction on social media by a lot of the people on the, we say on the left, who are like cheering it on or saying that Charlie Kirk deserved it and wished misfortune upon his family.
Sure.
So
here's something that I think is interesting that I wish people would consider a little bit. Maybe I've missed these, but I haven't seen any radical like attack from the left happen where after people see that this guy killed somebody and they go through his social media and they were like, oh my God, this guy's a radical leftist. I can tell he was at a Joe Biden rally. Or, oh my God, this radical leftist had like a I'm riding with Kamala Harris sticker on his car. It's always like the very far left, like kind of fringe radical crowd. Would you agree with that?
Partially.
Okay. On the right, I feel like it's bog standard MAGA stuff. It'll be stuff that I see on my mom's. Like if my mom were to, like if somebody were to go out and commit a terrorist attack and you were showing my mom's Facebook page, they'd be like, oh yeah, that's definitely a radical, crazy person. And I feel like it's ordinary.
Yeah. So I think also a main difference is that, for example, when it came to the Minnesota lawmakers who were murdered and assassinated, there was universal condemnation on both sides.
Absolutely not.
Yes, there was.
There was condemnation on the right initially because they thought the shooter was left wing, because they found that like the No Kings posters or whatever, and because Melissa Hortman had a vote that had to do with I think it was abortion or something to do with illegal immigrants. And in the first 8 hours, the assumption was that the shooter was left wing, and there was condemnation. After that happened, the entire right wing stopped talking about it, stopped caring about it. So much so that when I think Caitlin Collins asked Trump, it was either her or somebody else asked Trump in the Oval Office, what about when he was flying the flag at half mast for Charlie, and they were like, do you think that you should have given more attention to the Minnesota people that were killed? And he was like, Minnesota who? Minnesota what? He had nothing to say about it. When he was asked outside Air Force One, would you call Tim Walz to talk to him about the murder of Melissa Hortman and her husband and the other shooting of the two lawmakers? And he was like, no, that guy's whacked out, he said. So I totally disagree that there was universal condemnation on the right. The right never condemns violence when they think it has anything to do with their side. I haven't seen it in the mainstream at all. I wish I was wrong on that if you have examples. But I challenge you to look into that. The statements that I know Trump made, I do agree there was condemnation in the beginning, but it's because they saw those No Kings rally posters and they initially thought that he had targeted her for some like anti-abortion or pro-choice or pro-life vote or whatever. And they're like, oh, it's a left-wing shooter. And then they stopped talking about it.
Okay. I guess I'll say like, also like, because I would say besides also, of course, the January 6th, because it is an important event, but again, at the same time, it was over 4 years ago at this point. But I mean, a more relevant thing that happened on America was, of course, the spring of 2024 when all the pro-Palestinian movements happened on university campuses.
Yep.
And while like people can talk about like whether or not they had the free about.
But again, the difference: how many of those people with those speakers getting up and being like, "We want to start off by saying thank you, Joe Biden, and we love Kamala Harris." They all fucking hate the Democrats, right? Yeah. But when it comes to January 6th, why were those people there? Because Trump called them to be there. Do you see the difference? The frustrating part of fighting. Like, I hate most of these people. I don't want to say I hate them, but like, I'm ideologically opposed to a lot of these people. I hate a lot of the thought leaders on the far left, but like politically, it's so different. Nobody is out here shooting up schools with a "I'm riding with Biden" sticker on their backpack, but Trump like is almost indecipherable from a lunatic MAGA conspiracy theorist. Like, unironically, no?
That can be on for the discussion, but I'd say like when it comes to the spring of 2024, we have seen several Democratic lawmakers go into those protests to actually support mainly the squad, which is Ilhan Omar and Alexander Cortez, and so support for that movement, and it was shown that in several of those instances they were blocking specifically Jewish students from entering campus or sections of campus and making them feel very unsafe.
Yeah, but like AOC, first of all, so you're pointing to the two furthest left-leaning people, right, in the Democrat Congress. But then also, two, they've had to answer for that. Like, people ask them questions and they've had to disavow that, right? Oh, no, we shouldn't be blocking Jewish students from going to school. We shouldn't be violent at any of our protests. And a lot of the far-left protesters fucking hate AOC because they feel like she's been too moderate on these things. Like, meanwhile, Donald Trump is like directly and literally, like, can you think of a single equivalent statement to after Erica had her performance at the WWF Charlie Kirk Memorial or whatever, right? When Trump comes on and he says, Charlie Kirk says that he wanted to forgive his enemies, and I want people to know I hate my political enemies. Like, what's an equivalent Democratic statement to that from leadership, from lawmakers? Like, there's nothing.
Okay.
In terms of, like, spreading conspiratorial stuff about, like, most... I don't know if it's... No, maybe Ryan knows. I don't know. I don't know if a single cabinet member, maybe Rubio did, acknowledge that Biden won the 2020 election. I think they were almost all asked this question, and all of them refused to answer.
They'll say he's president, but they won't say he won a free and fair election.
Yes, yeah, they'll say... Yeah, they say that. That's a dog whistle, right? Oh, well, Biden's the president. So... What is the equivalent to that on the left, right? That's crazy to me.
Well, actually, I have to say, like, during most of the Trump's first term, many Democratic lawmakers or, for example, Clinton, ever since the 2016 election to 2020, always said that Trump was an illegitimate president.
So I think she said one time there is a larger thing she was talking about, but when she was talking about, like, illegitimate president, it was in the context of, like, the way that his conduct is, right? Yeah, I don't think she was saying, like, nobody... Like, they try to make this claim that people said the election was rigged or whatever, and there might have been some fringe voices that said that. But again, like, we can find quotes, but, like, look at the behavior. Hillary conceded the election the day of. So did Kamala Harris, right? In 2020, Pence had to walk out on stage and say, we're going to wait till all the votes are counted, because Trump tried to declare himself the winner. And today, they still refuse to even acknowledge the outcome of that election, which is insane to me, and I think is indicative of... potential bad behavior in future elections. Like, that's really bad. That's really scary, right?
Yeah, I definitely say, like...
Hold on, wait. Okay, because this is a fascinating reaction to me. You're, like, hesitant. Like, in my opinion, I would exile, if I was the dictator for a day.
No.
These people would be exiled from the country permanently, would never be allowed back.
No,
but I'm asking, like, how is it, in your mind, how is it, like, yeah, you know,
no,
they tried to coup the government in 2020, and yeah, you know, they don't accept the results of the election, even though they lost every single court case.
Okay.
And that's kind of bad. Isn't that, like, crazy?
Yeah, I definitely agree that there's definitely, after all the court cases were dealt with, Trump should have been definitely more, like, I say less hostile.
Okay,
definitely less hostile in his rhetoric.
I understand what you're saying. I'm going to even disagree with you. It shouldn't have been after. None of those court cases should have even started, because almost all the court cases were started on bullshit fabricated evidence anyway. Remember Sidney Powell's Kraken? Nothing came from any of that. We saw at the outcome of the defamation suit that Dominion filed against Fox News. They were all lying about the Dominion shit. They knew they were lying about it, and they were spreading lies at the behest of Sidney Powell and Giuliani at the Trump campaign. So, like, the lawsuits really, a lot of them shouldn't have even started, because they knew they were built on bullshit. We saw that. How many times do we see videos in the was it Georgia? Of the ballots under the boxes where they were pretending that those ballot boxes showed up out of nowhere. You can watch the full videos. They were just put under and then they were taken back out to count. So even the lawsuits were starting on a bullshit foundation. This is not good.
Yeah.
They refuse to acknowledge any of this. Wait, one more thing.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah,
so I guess like.
So one question I'll ask, and then you can respond, and then say whatever.
Of course.
What is, like, any equivalent behavior on the Democratic lawmaker side, on, like, a Democratic elected leader side? Not somebody that Republicans want us to look at, like crazies on Twitter, but, like, what's an actual, like, large Democrat what's the equivalent action?
I'm definitely gonna say I'll look at that, but I definitely say it's definitely not my strong suit. But the main reason I came up here was definitely said, especially when you said that more violence on the right wing side than the left wing side. But I experienced more, like, I won't say violence, but definitely a lot more hatred from people who are on the left, especially when the whole pro-Palestinian stuff started. And I know it means, and I don't mean the general left, the general right, because I think most part those people are mostly civil. I say more on the far right and then.
Well, yeah, but I mean that's because they're status quo warriors. Is that really surprising? Like, if I put a bunch of pro-Israel people and a bunch of pro-Palestinian people together, what do the pro-Israel people have to be mad about? Israel's gotten everything it's wanted over the past 80 years, but, like, over the past, like, few years especially, right? Like, if you're an Israeli, simp, what do you have to be mad about? You've literally gotten the fucking world handed to you. It would make sense to me that pro-Palestinians would be super mad in that situation. And in a scenario where you have 100 Israeli supporters and 100, Palestinian supporters in the same room, I would expect the Palestinians to be more mad. Does that necessarily make them more violent? I mean, I guess maybe. Like, statistically, there's going to be more violence, but the status quo massively supports the Israelis, so the Israeli supporters. So, like, wouldn't you expect that?
I would expect more civil debate because one major thing, again, as I alluded to initially, was that the murder of, like, you go outside the conflict zone itself, more the violence that can, like, happen in the West between, like, Israel and Israel-Palestinian conflict has been initiated by the pro-Palestinian and sadly it turned more deadly.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. But again, I would also like kind of expect that. Because why would any pro-Israeli initiate any violence at all? They were getting everything they want, right?
If you say that as a pro-Israeli, I don't feel like as like policy-wise you can say that, but when it comes to like having seen DC, especially like not only online but with people that I used to be friends with, be very I won't say like violent, but very like I would say like more supportive of what happened on October 7th than
sure. And so like I can agree that that's bad. I'm sorry. Okay, I know you're trying to kick him off. Hold on. So this is my issue. Okay. And I bet you can even catch me saying something like this because I've been so mind fucked by the Republican media machine in this country, right? Is it feels like left-wing people are more violent because a lot of them seem to support pro-Palestinian violence or like October 7th or whatever versus right-wing people that don't support stuff like that. Like maybe I can, okay, like I might have even said statements like this in the past. But like so much right-wing violence is like seen as acceptable or normal. Like why is Donald Trump deploying the military against his own cities? But like when Republicans support that, they're not seen as violent for being supportive of that. But in my mind, that's fucking crazy. And there's just like not much care that seems to be paid to that because Republicans just don't pay much attention to it. So yeah,
Okay.
or like we look at like you've brought up legitimate instances of like crazy pro-Pally people committing violence in the United States, but like we have like mass ICE dudes that are fucking terrorizing parts of the United States right now. But that's like seen as like acceptable or normal. And I don't know how Republicans control the narrative so much when you see fucking Kristi Noem walking on a building and looking down at like a guy in a fucking frog suit saying that the Portland Antifa super soldiers are here to take over. I wish that I would encourage people to pay attention more to like right-wing violence is like so kind of like status quo-y and normalized, and because they don't have to do anything. Like if I'm a right-wing dude, fucking ICE is beating the shit out of brown people, and the military's going everywhere and doing standing around and wasting taxpayer money. I guess like I don't have to protest, I don't have to be violent. They're doing it for me. And then there was any left-wing violence in response. Not that I encourage or support any left-wing violence, especially because I disagree with most of the people on the far left that are violent. But like, damn, it sucks for them to say like, man, we're so violent and the right is never violent, I guess, even though the right has like the establishment violence right now,
Okay, so yeah, no worries. But
Yeah, you have the final word on
hopefully
that.
I'll let other people speak. But I guess we can agree to disagree on some issues that weren't discussed today.
Okay, thanks, I appreciate it.
Thank you. We have about 30 minutes, so we'll try to get as many people as possible in here. Come on.
Hello. I have a bit of a more moral question for you today.
Oh boy, what's up?
Do you think it could be morally justified if I shock the shit out of my dog just for moving?
Just for moving? Shot him or shocked him?
Shock.
I think it would depend on how many viewers you had at the time and how important he was to the overall framing of whatever stream you were broadcasting.
There was a lot of people watching.
Yeah, so I mean that would be the most important question, yeah.
So do you agree with it if there was a lot of people watching and...
Yeah, it's a cute-ass dog. It should stay in frame all the time. Why the fuck does he need to move around the house? His mom and family are in that house, okay? Maybe the dog
that's
will
why
eat
he's
them.
there.
Yeah, exactly.
You related to Kristi Noem?
Hmm?
Nothing. Joke.
No, that was a Hassan joke.
Oh, Hassan joke?
Not a Kristi Noem joke, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. That was all I had for you.
Okay, well, thank you. I appreciate
Thank
it.
you. Interesting question. Yeah, I like it too.
Hi, Destiny. I'm not too aware of what your campaign's about, so I'm not sure how well you're unfucking America. But one of my main question is, just for the campaign in general, is what do you think the main root cause of our, I guess, economic inequality and like dystopian area we're kind of venturing towards in with America? What do you think are the main causes right now?
For economic inequality, I think I think capital is very powerful right now. Like if you own the like means of production, I think that there's like huge, you could say rents, I guess, but there's like huge value that you can extract from that. And I think there's a growing divide between, not to sound too Nazi-ish or whatever, but I think there's a growing divide between like IQ related work. So like
100%.
Society right now like super selects for computer programmers and people that can sit on a fucking computer all day and click buttons and be white collar work or whatever, as opposed to people that do more manual labor. That the education and training is not as big, and then there are bigger payments that you make over time in regards to your personal health of your body and everything. I think that divide is growing larger and larger, and I think it plays out even sometimes geographically, where you see like people that live in cities and in more educated towns or whatever are like becoming more wealthy away from more poor people too. But there's two different kinds of wealth inequality, and one gets all the attention and the other doesn't. The first one is just like the billionaire obsession, which I think is fucking stupid. I don't care how fucking rich Jeff Bezos is or whatever. But then there's this second thing that nobody seems to pay attention to, because because you motherfuckers all like to pretend that your college degrees aren't worth anything, even though they absolutely are. And it's like
100%.
it's the growing divide between kind of like the wealthy, educated working class versus like the wealthy, educated, like some people petit bourgeois or whatever, like your upper class, workers, and then your kind of like middle class and then working class workers. I think that divide is growing too.
Cool. And then talking about the economy right now, I know there's a bunch of people.
Go for it.
Wrap it up. Do you think our immigrants, illegal or not, provide better for our American economy right now, or no?
I mean, it depends on what you mean by that. Broadly speaking,
blue
like
collar, I guess, mainly.
Well, I mean, like, to an economy, resources are important, and one of your most important resources is labor. So, like, any legal or illegal immigrant is going to make your GDP grow. Fiscally, illegal immigrants are technically good for our budget because typically you get them at prime working age. Like, your first 18 years are kind of a waste, or they're a drag fiscally on any state. So if an illegal comes in and starts working at 20 years old, you've skipped that whole initial investment period.
Yeah.
And then they also typically work on, they're either paid cash or they work on stolen social security numbers, so they're paying into social security and stuff and they're not getting anything out of it. So fiscally, they tend to be beneficial. And then in terms of like consumers, they tend to be beneficial, more workers, cheaper products, or whatever else. Business owners, they tend to be beneficial. There are arguments that are made that for certain displaced local workers, there could be like a depression of wages, obviously because you've got more people working. So that was a very boring answer, but yeah, like overall, they tend to be a boon to the economy. There are certain like populations that they can negatively impact potentially. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Was that it? Would you have a prescription, or what were you gonna?
No,
or an opinion, or?
I just wanted to hear my opinion. I agree with your opinion.
Oh,
So
good. Okay,
just
good
wanted
job.
to-
Good opinion.
yeah,
You have a great
I'm on your
opinion.
side. Thank you. Free Palestine.
Okay, thanks. Oh, I didn't see that line over there. Okay, I thought it was just up front here. Okay, I got you.
That's why I'm Russian.
You're Russian? I didn't know that.
I'm definitely not Russian.
Oh, okay.
How's it going, man?
Hey, what's up?
I had a question. What do you think is the biggest issue with the Trump administration? Like, what's your biggest fear?
The biggest issue with the Trump admin, I mean, I would say it's his like disregard for rule of law. I think that there are certain systems that when you start to disregard these systems, like everything else kind of doesn't matter, right? So like arguably like freedom of speech, like if you get rid of freedom of speech, you kind of don't have any other right because now your ability to speak on any other right is compromised. So yeah, when Donald Trump seems to not care what the actual written law is and it gives him the ability to do anything, I think that's a really scary world to be in.
Okay. Now, the reason I asked that, it's going to sound strange. I was the one that authored the essay, Has Woke Gone Too Far?
Okay.
And in there, we talked about executive or unitary executive theory. Trump packing the courts, getting the lame duck presidency with Obama, deploying troops to the cities. How do Democrats stop that? Because obviously we've known about that for like 8-10 years now. Nobody did anything, and everything they put in Project 2025 has come to fruition with no backing.
How do Democrats stop that? The thing that I've said, and I don't know what this would look like, and it doesn't fucking matter because nobody's going to do it anyway, but at the end of this administration, ideally when a Democratic administration comes in, I personally think there needs to be like a Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Like, there needs to be a reckoning or an accountability project for what's happened, because we can't just like step into the next admin and pretend that nothing here happened the way that it did. Like, I think that the Conservative Party has lost like the moral high ground on literally every single topic they could ever pretend to care about. You can't be the party of free speech and deport people because they're pro-Palestine. You can't be the party who is, like pro-rule of law while Trump is literally personally ordering around his DOJ to go and prosecute political enemies. You can't be the party of anti-corruption and you hate Hunter Biden while Trump is literally cutting deals with his family and behalf of his son and with his crypto coin scams. Like, they've lost the moral high ground on every single issue, and we can't just like moonwalk into 2020 pretending that nothing ever happened like this. I don't know what exactly that process looks like, but there has to be some kind of process in line for that.
Okay. And then kind of
go
into that reconciliation idea. Constitutional convention. Bad idea, good idea?
I think it's a bad idea. So I thought about this a lot, the idea that like we need to change the laws or change the Constitution. But the reality is that like he's breaking the laws and they don't care about the Constitution. I think that it's a mistake to try to make a perfect system that will capture every bad actor. Nobody like if you and I were to sit down and play chess, right? I don't know the formal written rules of chess, but I guess I do. But like I don't know if there's a rule book, but I'm guessing in the rule book there's not a rule against me like stabbing you, right? So, like, if I were to start bringing knives to chess games to kill my opponents, nobody's going to say, okay, we know this team is going to do this. How about in the next tournament we make it illegal to stab your opponent in chess, right? Well, this is a person who's not playing the game in good faith, obviously, right? So when you look at, like, the Trump administration, you look at the way they're acting, how many times, did we hear Vance throw that stupid Andrew Jackson quote around of, like, well, if the courts have made their rulings, let them enforce it? Or how many times have we heard them say things that are just completely with disregard? Like, I don't know if I've heard yet a Solicitor General argue with the merits of any fucking case in front of the Supreme Court. These same people who hate process and procedure wrap themselves in it when they have to defend the merits or substance of any fucking thing that they argue. So, I feel like this is not an administration that plays in good faith. There is no rule. There is no constraining force that's written down somewhere that would restrict these people. It has to come in the form of, like, accountability or consequences. Like, there needs to be some demonstration to the American people that, like, hey, if you act this way, like, you're not going to get away with it. This can't be this way. It can't be like that.
Right, and the reason I was asking is because Roe v. Wade, we had it in case law. It wasn't enshrined in the Constitution or in any amendments, and it got overturned. Being proactive like that would have prevented January 6th as well. They used judges of elections within the article to describe how they were going to be able to actually have Mike Pence overturn the election. Those are things that Democrats knew about. They could have enshrined.
Well, like for January, or just real quick on the Roe, and then you're gonna. But like for Roe, I agree. Having a law for that maybe would have helped a little bit more. For January 6th, they were trying to break the law. They knew they were breaking the law. Anytime a Republican says this is constitutional, that's code word for we're saying it's constitutional because we want to break the Electoral Count Act is what they were trying to break. But yeah, go ahead.
And then getting to that idea of them kind of pushing the boundaries,
shattering the boundaries. Yeah, go ahead.
To say it lightly, I guess. We obviously have term limits. But we have had presidents who had 3 terms. Obviously, that amendment got put into the Constitution or whatever. Technically, Trump could get a 3rd term if he was elected House Speaker, Republicans won the presidency, and both Vice President and President abdicated. And we have no prevention of that because he wasn't technically elected to office. He was appointed through the succession line. Democrats really have a lot to go against at this point, and I'm just curious because you have one of the biggest voices. What kind of policy do you think could prevent this? Because I
understand what you're saying. I don't think there is one. Like this. I don't know. Do you have like a legal background at all, or that there's like that argument is so dumb that he could be appointed or whatever. But that's because like if you understand it's just the 22nd Amendment was the one for term limits. Like the understanding is that like you can't do that. What you just said.
But you also can't put fake electors in, and that happened. Nobody got prosecuted.
True, and I would say even more strongly that on the 14th Amendment, they made a similar argument for like no person shall be like or whatever, and it's like, and they're saying well that they weren't saying it's illegal to or whatever.
Convicted of insurrection,
yeah,
so
it was,
it didn't apply.
The way that they read the language was really stupid on that, and the same arguments that they made for striking Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, I think they could use to strike that section of the 22nd Amendment. But going back to what I said before, there is no rule that you could make to restrain like a bad faith actor.
So we just have to take it as it comes then, huh?
You have to have people that are willing to play within the rules of the system, right? When Obama wanted to, I think it was for the drone strike of the American citizen overseas, when Obama wanted to do that, Obama's approach wasn't, I'm going to fucking do whatever I can because I'm the president. He went to the Office of Legal Counsel and he sought their legal advice. He's like, do you think this is something that the president is legally capable of doing? And when a person's acting that way, like you can tell that, he's at least acting like he feels like he has some kind of constraints. Meanwhile, Donald Trump has gotten rid of criminal immunity or gotten rid of criminal liability for the presidency. That's just crazy to me.
Like the courts, though, there was no preventative measures. We knew that they were going to try and get the lame duck presidency excuse. He got
but I'm saying for
his immunity, and it just continues and continues, and it
for
makes
the criminal
Democrats and leftists look helpless, and their constituency is left out to dry.
Yeah, I agree. There just has to be some kind of accounting for what they're doing. But say for the criminal immunity thing, there's nothing we could have done to prevent that, right? Nobody would even think to pass a law that's saying the president can't do crimes because obviously the fucking president can't commit crimes. What a stupid thing to think. But then the Supreme Court comes out and says, well, actually, maybe he can do as many crimes as long as he's the president. So how would you even write a rule against that? And I feel like there are just an infinite number of circumstances. There needs to be an accounting for from the top down, politically, on our media level, on our every part, where Republicans just can't feel like they can come in and act like soulless demons and get away with it every single time. I just think that's crazy.
I'm going to finish. This is my proposed solution.
Go ahead. Yeah, I'm curious.
To be proactive,
Yes.
We have these outlines from Project 2025. We have history of the Republican Party and how they operate. A simple solution is instead of focusing on rhetoric, I kind of like what Gavin Newsom's been doing, trolling Trump on Twitter, but that's not governing. So if they came up with actual policies to prevent this, it would give people a reason to vote for them instead of just saying, oh, they're the antithesis to what the Republicans are trying to push.
Yeah, I wish I could agree with you, but I feel like American citizens don't give a fuck about policy. They like the trolling. That's all they that's all they see. That's all they care about. That's all they think about. Like nobody cared to hear about Project 2025. It's the only reason I didn't, talk about it as much on my stream is because it seemed like it was kind of boring to people. They wanted to hear about like inflation and the economy and how epic and
like you
basic.
said, top-down responsibility. If you have a platform, if you understand the material, you have that duty to do.
True, but we
It's a
also
civic duty.
need our elected officials to push on it, but we need our media to push on it too. I hear
Well,
this
that's why I'm
thing.
here.
I hear this thing said so much. It's so funny by like left-wing media or by far leftists even. They'll say things like the Democratic Party messaging is so bad. The Democratic Party messaging is so bad. They don't say that on Fox News because they do messaging for the Republicans. They wouldn't say Trump is so bad at messaging on this. They just help Trump message on it.
But that's authoritarianism at its finest.
Sure, and I'm not saying on the left we have to be like as crazy, but I'm just saying that like on the right.
Prisoner's dilemma. I think it would be a viable a tactic.
Sure. Wait, why are you saying that?
It kind of worked with Gavin Newsom. Obviously, to be honest, I don't actually support him. He kind
Okay.
of lost my support. I am technically a never Trump Republican.
Sure. Okay, I only ask because I've been talking about prisoner's dilemma a lot on my stream.
I watch your content. Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. No, I agree with you 100%. But like, there has to, like, it can't be that like every time somebody on the left says something, they're getting fucking railed from every single conservative and everybody on the left and everybody on the far left, and it's like there has to be some kind of like unified messaging. Yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Those never Trump Republicans. Get along with you guys.
Thank you.
Hey, what's
Good,
up,
how
what's
you
up?
doing? Whoa, this is a little high. Hi. Damn. Thank you, bro. It's pretty awesome to see you. I watch your stream pretty often.
Cool.
And I'm not really trying to argue, but I just have kind of a question for you about the future and just kind of hope in general.
Okay.
I want to ask, when you talk about unfucking America, what does that vision actually look like to you? Because a lot of people right now feel like the country's already a little too far gone, with guys like Stephen Miller, Russ Vought, Mike Johnson, and of course Trump still shaping this movement. Without being too doomer about it, how do you stay hopeful? And who, if anyone, do you look to as examples for rebuilding faith in our institutions?
So we've had a civil war before, right?
Yeah.
So like we've had times where this country's been in a dark spot, and we seem to find our way back, to working. We have for 250 or so years, and hopefully we continue on that path. We're in a kind of a bumpy road, to say the least, right now.
Yeah.
Hopefully we kind of make our way back. The Democrats it's taken a while, but I think they're starting to find their footing, whether it's with Gavin Newsom leading.
Or Zoran Mamdani as well.
Yeah, with Mamdani in New York City. Hopefully you see, more energy from younger people and everything. So hopefully the Democrats are finding their footing there. We need to work on having a more consistent messaging apparatus, and I think from that more consistent messaging, hopefully we start to see a dialogue again between conservatives and liberals, because when that dialogue is gone, you see especially the conservative side has gotten lost into
It feels
crazy
a lot
land.
like a lot of the times they're just in a different reality.
They
and
absolutely
it's,
are. Yeah.
It's like talking to a malignant narcissist. They can't just admit that the sky is blue, There has
Why,
to be an
if
entire
Donald Trump says
workaround.
it is red, then it's not going to be blue.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. So I agree. I just messaging needs to be stronger on the left. I think we're on our way back there, and then hopefully it forces dialogue again, and then we kind of work our way back to a more sane shared reality. Yeah.
All right, right on. That was pretty much it. Of
Thanks.
course. Thanks.
Hey, how's it going?
Not quite tall enough for this.
You
Hold
can
on.
lower if you just twist that to the left, and then.
It's okay. Here, I'll do this.
Okay.
There you go.
What's up?
How's it going? So, you being a part of an organization that's so anti-violence, what would you say to someone who makes comments like, "Kill yourself, you fucking cunt. I hope you get raped"? What would you say to something like that?
Or would ask what the other person said to deserve that comment.
Oh, to deserve it. Okay, wow. So when you say unfuck America, is that just the rape victims you want unfucked, or?
Well, probably not. Probably everybody.
All right. Well, have a good one. Thanks, guys.
Thanks a lot.
Is that a serious question?
It was very serious.
Wow.
How's it going?
Hey, what's up, buddy?
So I've seen your name's Destiny, right?
Well, my name is Steven, but I
Or
go
Steven?
online as Destiny.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I just came across because I'm a big supporter of speaking out in public and being able to speak to people and have open conversation. I did a little work with TPUSA over in San Diego with his work, and it was and in my opinion, I don't know about others, but it was terrible what happened. Just to take someone out, whether you don't like them, whether you disagree with them, is awful.
Yeah.
But I just came up here just to, I guess, get same thing opinion. Since there's not much time left, I want to get other people up here.
Sure.
The first one was compared to like in the election between like Trump and Kamala. With Kamala, what I just cannot get behind was the fact that she, and you correct me if I'm wrong, that she sort of like assumed the candidacy for the Democratic Party. I don't really know anyone that voted for her or like
Sure.
said that I wanted her to be the new nominee. Do you think that was right in any way?
I think it was a weird situation. I think that I thought it was making the best of a kind of a weird situation. Yeah.
Do you think Joe Biden would have still been a better candidate than Trump?
I have no idea. It's hard to say. At the time, I was like 50-50 on whether they should keep Biden or go with Kamala. I think it's hard to say either way. Who knows? Maybe Biden would have won. He won one time before. I mean, who knows? Yeah, I'm not. I mean, Kamala lost. I'm not going to sit here and say, and pretend that like, oh, I think Biden actually would have been better to stick with. I have no idea. It's hard to say. It was such a weird election. Yeah.
Okay.
Also, wait, I'm kind of curious. Hold on. I just a curious thing. Do you remember the name of what's the name of the Indian billionaire business guy that was like part of the MAGA movement? I want to. Who was it?
Was that the guy that was like, "I'll see you in Valhalla" or something?
No. You're thinking of Kash Patel, the other Indian guy. He was like a nominee. I think his name started with a V.
Vivek Ramaswamy, right?
Yes.
Okay.
What was his name?
Vivek Ramaswamy?
Yes.
Ramaswamy.
Okay. How can you get that last name right, but not Kamala?
Kamala.
I'm curious how every conservative makes it this thing that they can't pronounce Kamala's name, but you can get Vivek Ramaswamy. How? What's going on there?
I don't know.
Okay, sorry. I'm just curious. Okay, sorry. Okay. Go on. What was the second part of your question? Yeah.
The last one, and I mean, I'm not really gonna give an answer anyways, is a big TP USA question.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say what a woman is?
What a woman is I don't know, man. Whatever you want it to be. Okay. At this point, it's whatever the most of the people on Twitter say that the woman is. Okay. So if they say everybody's trans, then they're trans. If they say they're cis, then they're cis. That's what I go with.
All right. Well, sounds good. Well, nice talking to you.
All right. Thanks a lot, buddy.
Didn't Piers Morgan ask us both that question too? I thought.
Did he? He might have. It sounds like a Piers Morgan question. Either that or asking how many people Obama deported.
Exactly. How you doing?
Good.
Is that mic okay for you?
Little bit.
No, make it taller. Yeah. Be as
There we
intimidating
go.
as possible.
There we go.
Okay, curious what I got myself into because I'm going to be completely honest. I did not know who you were till a few minutes ago. So apparently I've been living under a rock. But what I've gathered is you're a little more left leaning. So I have more of a personal question.
Okay.
What is your opinion on climate change and climate activism specifically?
Climate change to me is like one of those things that like I feel like it's a monumentally huge issue that we should all be looking at, but we're so not ready. It's kind of like asking like is it important to have like self-actualization in life, but then you're talking to like a bunch of people that are impoverished and starving to death, and it's like that's a really important question, but it's so far away from what they're like even able to get to because their like basic needs aren't met. The Republicans are kind of coming around on climate change. They just think that it's caused by like Jewish weather machines. But I mean, I don't know. I think it's an important issue. I think that we've been seeing, like more and more adverse climate events. You've got what was that one airport in Melton, like the road was melting and nobody in the northern hemisphere like has air conditioners past a certain longitude and everything. So yeah, but we aren't even in a position. Half the countries even think it's real. So yeah.
Interesting. I would argue that climate change, I'm an earth and environmental science major. My research is specifically on water, and then I hope to get into climate change. I just got into a new research lab on climate change, so I'm not sure what I'm doing yet, but that'll be next week's problem.
Okay.
So anyway, I personally, from what I've learned from my classes and just news articles and like my own research, is a lot of areas, like let's say Flint, Michigan, for example. I'm sure you've heard of that, right?
I've heard of Flint, Michigan. Yeah.
Issue with their water that they can't just pick up and move, and so in that case, their climate, which was created by humans because the lead pipes, essentially they switched their water system. So then they were using the lead pipes that were corroded, and then that's what caused the initial issue. But anyway, kind of circle the reason there. But my point is they can't just walk away from there because they can't afford it. So, and my parents parents grew up, they're in their 60s, a little bit older. They grew up on a farm. My mom didn't grow up with like indoor plumbing until she was like 9, and learning about what a climate consultant would do in one of my classes, a lot of work that they do is they go to farms and they kind of clean up a lot of the environment. And so it's interesting hearing, because my mom growing up so poor and impoverished, and how they were farming to like survive, and yet some of the environmental effects that they had. So
Sure.
I would argue that they're related, and the more rural areas, they're going to be hit the hardest. Like, let's say, for example, with hotter summers, if you can't afford AC.
Yeah, but I think the issue, if you don't believe in climate change, is any climate-related issue, you can
Okay.
just claim it's like another issue, right? So they won't
Okay.
say like, man, we're having, big climate-related issues. They'll just say, oh, I wish we had more AC, Not to say that it's wrong for people,
Yeah.
obviously, to get AC, but yeah. I wish I had a better answer. I agree it's a huge problem. It's just like we're just so not even ready to have...
Okay.
Like, Trump literally thinks that coal is like the coolest form of energy. I don't even know why. Like, it's so stupid, yeah. But
And it's not green energy is not a perfect system either, and that's why it's so frustrating as a scientist, because people will sit there and argue about the things that are imperfect about, let's say, lithium, for example. Electric cars is great, but mining lithium, not so good, but it kind of counteracts, like the good counteracts the bad, and it's not perfect, so people would rather just be like, oh, well, that's bad, I'm sticking to coal, which is obviously
really
worse.
bad, yeah.
So,
and we've seen what,
yeah.
200 years or whatever of, or however long,
Yeah.
using coal has gotten us, but like we don't know what it would look like for 50 years more of a strong investment in green energies. Like obviously these materials will get more environmentally friendly, the wave extraction, everything.
They
Yeah.
need money to
yeah.
just like.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess I have one more quick question for you then. How do you get? Because I've noticed climate activists and like climate science is a lot different. A lot of people assume, like those of us that are in climate science, like, oh, we're just a bunch of like activists, but we're more so like in the lab coding, doing like the actual sciencey stuff. And a lot of times the climate activists, they tend to, I would say, fearmonger. Like they'll freak people out, like, oh my God, the Earth's gonna like blow up, which. Actually, that's a little bit like, an extreme. How can we kind of bridge that gap with like getting people that maybe don't believe in it to start like listening to scientists rather than
I think one of my biggest
scaring
criticisms of
people?
like academia and science, especially during the time of like COVID and vaccines, is
Yeah.
I just wish there were more communicators.
Okay.
Do you know who? I hate messing this up. Is it Flint Dribble? He's like an archaeologist guy.
I've not.
He did. Oh God. He's a guy who knows a lot. He did a lot of research on like doing debate and everything relating to like archaeology. I think I'm getting this correct. He went on Joe Rogan and he argued with. There's a guy called Graham something who's I don't follow these people, but I did talk to Flint. He's a really cool dude. I wish there were more people that were in science communication that were also like scientist type people, because I think at the end of the day, applied science is technology, and science that's not communicated to any other human
Exactly.
being effectively at the end of the day basically becomes pointless. And yeah, I think that part of the discipline needs to be taken more seriously, more strongly, for sure. Yeah.
Oh. Well, I like to speak to people, so maybe a future career.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, last person. Then we have a very special grand finale.
Hi, friend.
Hi, what's up?
I'm not very political, but I just wanted to say that, given by your name, I know that Jesus is the only way our country could be healed.
Okay.
Yes, that's it. And that God bless to everyone watching and everyone here, and that if we are committed to God, then that's how America will be healed. That's it. God bless you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for coming. We have a little bit of a grand finale to give to you. This is a guy, you've seen him the other day. He was just all over the news on TMZ. He was arrested at an ICE protest in Portland. And the one, the only, ladies and gentlemen, that I'm going to be introducing next year, I was told, Mr. Robbie Road Steamer. Robbie, get up here.
Oh, we already did that one. You guys, no, we need some balance. How you guys doing? Let's hear it for everybody today, right? Let's hear it for Destiny. Let's hear it for Brian. Brian, get out here. I'm gonna do one I did a couple weeks ago in Broadville, Illinois, for the ICE agents down there. They're detaining a lot of people, some of them illegals, a lot of them actually, well, you know what, they're not illegals, they're actually working class citizens and whatnot, and it's a shame. So I wrote this song If you guys remember Donnie Darko, was that, anybody ever seen Donnie Darko? All right, well, if we get the lighters out and stuff, do this one right here. Bad trends.